Bulletin Board, the Upper Township website, mailed to the Cape May County Gazette, the Atlantic City Press, the Ocean City Sentinel Ledger, the Herald Times, and filed with the Township Clerk. Tonight's meeting is being video recorded up to and until closed session portion of the meeting. It will be available on the Upper Township website. I hereby direct this announcement to be made part of the minutes of this meeting. Would everyone please stand for the flag salute?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Barbara, please call the roll.
Mr. Collins?
Here.
Ms. Hayes?
Here.
Mr. Newman?
Here.
Mr. Pancoast?
Here.
Mayor Corson?
Present.
All members are present.
Make a motion that we approve the minutes of the June 13th regular and closed session.
Second.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Ms. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Newman?
Yes.
Mr. Pancoast?
Yes.
Mayor Corson?
Yes.
Motion is carried. All in favor?
Okay, Mark, do you have anything for us tonight?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. Committee members, Public Works was busy over the past 2 weeks, obviously, as usual. We had a complaint on Bryan Road that the grass clippings weren't picked up, so Mr. Reeves handled that accordingly. Got a good resolution on that when the homeowners were happy with that. Also want to remind our Strathmere residents that this Monday trash will be picked up. If they can have their trash cans out at 6 a.m., that would be great. We're going to have 4 trucks over there early to get in and out. So the trash will be picked up Monday, and they're hoping to get over there at 6 a.m. and start that. Had the honor to attend 2 ribbon cutting ceremonies over the past weekend and Saturday. One was at yesterday's Creekside Tavern, and the other one was the Maple Tree in Cedar Square. We all know that Cedar Square is kind of a little run down right now, so it's a beautiful business in that area. We had a good meeting with them, so it was a really good time to see those businesses popping up, especially in Cedar Square. And last but not least, it's great to see the Hornets' Nest taking over Township Hall. So thank you, and that's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
All right, Kim, do you have anything?
I have a couple things, thank you. So I also attended the ribbon cuttings for Maple Tree Gift Shop and for yesterday's Creekside Tavern. Both were excellent, well-attended events. If you haven't been to either of those places, I encourage you to get out there and visit those businesses. I just wanted to say thank you to Blanche Adams and Steve Zellers from the Upper Township Business Association for facilitating our attendance at those events and for also attending those events with us. And a happy belated birthday to Blanche. I don't think she's here tonight, but she spent most of her birthday Saturday at ribbon cutting, so that really tells you her dedication to Upper Township businesses. I also would like to give an update on the disc golf course. Our head of Public Works met with some of the community members that have been helping us. The course is officially all laid out. We will begin construction on that, and we estimate about 2 to 3 weeks before it's up and running, of course weather permitting because it's all outside. So when you see some construction going on around the bike path area of Amanda's Field, that's what's happening there. I'm going to call on Larry Cole in just a second to give some updates on 4th of July. Sorry, Larry. Just to give some information about our 4th of July celebration. That will be Monday. But before he begins, I just want to remind all the residents of these areas that we will be posting no parking signs on Route 50 between Sunset and Perry Road, on Sunset Road itself, on California, on South Sunset between California and Dawn Road. We're also going to be posting on Jonathan Landing. That's typically a no street parking area, but there were some issues last year with fire trucks being able to gain access because individuals weren't aware that it's a no parking. So you will see posted signs this year, unlike last year. It's important for the emergency vehicles to be able to get to that area to protect property. So Larry, if you could just give us a little overview of what we have going on for 4th of July.
Thank you, Committeewoman. So fireworks, we're all set up, similar layout as we've done in years past. We have the fireworks company ready to go, and we've met all the insurance credentials and requirements to launch, so that part of the celebration is good to go. The activities, we're going to be open in the park at 4 p.m., and the Tuckahoe Praise Band will be opening for in the beginning as well until 5:30 p.m. At 5:45, we will acknowledge the first graduating class of the inaugural UT EMS Youth Camp members, in which they will participate in the color guard presentation of the American flag. The national anthem will be performed by Jessica Riggins, Miss Ocean Sands 2022, just confirmed that today. And after the after that, the main act, Lost Sailors, who played last year, will be taking the stage to go through the fireworks until dusk. Kids' activities, very similar to years past, but we are still looking for the sports programs to join in to use the dunk tank as we did last year. We do have the hockey associations confirmed. Sports programs that are going to be helping out so far also is softball is going to be running the concession stand. So they'll be helping out. We have food vendors, we have craft vendors, we have a couple new vendors thanks to some extended contacts out in the field that we've reached out to. So we got some new vendors that will be attending. Upper Sandwiches, unfortunately, is not going to be able to participate this year. They're going to have to request a refund because they don't have the insurance necessary since they closed down their business. So they're not meeting the insurance credentials for that. Event security, we've been discussing with the New Jersey State Police and also the Cape May County Sheriff's Department. Good news is that that's not going to cost us anything to use the Cape May County Sheriff's Department this year. So, any questions? No? All right, thank you.
Larry, we will have a ladder truck there, I'm sorry.
Oh, thank you. I forgot to put that in the report, but
It's fine.
we'll have the fire truck with the 50-foot flag.
Larry, I just want to thank you for all your hard work. I know we've met a bunch of times, but you're really spearheading this and pushing it through, so thank you. And thank you, Craig and Mike, for all your efforts, too. And that is all I have this evening.
John, do you have anything for us tonight?
No, I'd just like to encourage everybody to attend our Independence Day celebrations, especially the parade in Strathmere, which is always a good old-fashioned 4th of July. And I'd like to wish everyone a happy and healthy Independence Day.
Jay, do you have anything for us? Yeah, a couple of items. First of all, if you have not heard or read, there was another unfortunate incident in a local beach that someone had drowned. Actually, in Corson's Inlet, it was on the Ocean City side. Once again, as we reiterated at the last several meetings, you need to swim only at guarded locations. Only at guarded locations. That goes for everywhere. Everywhere you might be swimming, whether it be out at Belle Plaine, a state park, anywhere on the beaches in Cape May County, Atlantic County, please. Just saves us for having to do these reports. Along those lines, there has been some issues that have been brought to my attention with regard to some situations that occur on our beach that I want to address tonight that we'll get started on, and that's some people are digging excessive large holes in the beach. I don't know where you stop it or where you start it, but it is an unsafe place if they're too big, and that has to do with not only the safety of the public, but also the safety of the person digging the hole. If everybody remembers a couple months ago, somebody was digging a hole, I think on one of the beaches on Long Beach Island, and it killed somebody, killed an adult, or near adult.
He was one of the diggers, but yes.
Yeah, so that's a problem. We really need to take, it was brought to my attention by our beach sweeper, and he asked me to bring it up here, which I have done, and we'll follow up on that. We have gotten from our beach patrol beach count of the past week of 7,256, and that's obviously an estimate. They did 21 fish outs, 2 medical calls, 1 lost person, and 759 preventative actions, according to the report, which is a good report. One of these preventative actions might be these holes, take care of these holes that occur on the beach.
You had a capsized boat last evening.
Yes, I don't know if that's included in this, but it was last evening.
catamaran, it was about a half mile off.
And our alert crew responded out, as well as per our agreement with Ocean City, they sent an ambulance, as well as Strathmere Fire Company responded out, and I think everything turned out to be okay. As Larry mentioned about the graduation for the youth camp started today, highly successful. I'm sure that Chief Coker will have something to that, or Chief Britton will have something about that, because it was a good turnout. We filled the camp up, and they got a lot of activities planned for this week. If any of your kids are in that camp, they're probably home sleeping, I'm sure, which is very, very good. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Jim. The only thing is, to elaborate on the 4th of July parade a little bit more, Township Committee will be in the parade, and we'll have a wagon, and I'll be pulling it with a 1966 farm tractor, that seems to be the plan right now. It's subject to change, though. And I just want to echo my colleagues' thoughts on the ribbon cuttings this weekend. It was very nice to go to those events and see so many people being active in our community. So, I guess at this time, Gary, do you have anything first?
Just the, thank you to Mr. Jones and Mr. Reeves for the grass clippings. I guess the time between the pickups and the extra week must have added some confusion and some difficulty picking up those grass clippings. So that was a job well done to both of those gentlemen. I got to spend the Sunday in Strathmere going through some of the parking issues that we've identified, so I'll have a recommendation. Some of the parkings. I met some nice residents over there who showed me some things that caused some difficulties, and I think that we could address those. The maple tree, I got to stop in there after your ribbon cutting. That is a fantastic store. I want to thank Barbara Ludi, who did a fantastic job on all those various ordinances that we got straightened out. She spent her good majority of her time stuck in her office trying to do all the calculations, but it all worked out very well. And my command staff over here on the EMS, you can see they're worn and withered, not in any uniforms, because how many kids did you have? 23 kids, all going in 23 different directions. So I did the feedback. Made it interesting. So that I got a tremendous amount of feedback this afternoon. There he is. He's just probably coming in, putting the beach balls away. But they did a fantastic job, and I'm truly appreciative, and I know the community is truly appreciative. This is what your resources go to. This is what the committee puts those resources to, and it was just a fantastic day. I think that's all I have at this point, Your Honor.
All right, thanks, Gary. Barbara, you have anything for us tonight?
I just have one little reminder that township offices will be closed on Monday, July 4th, and Mr. Pancoast already reminded you about the trash collection. We will reopen on July 5th, and just like to wish everyone a happy 4th of July. Thank you.
Mayor, one other thing before we go. Can I just get the EMS activity report on the record, and then we can close out the EMS. Then you don't have to stay for the duration if we don't want to. So Chief Coger will give the activity report for the past 2 weeks.
We had about 60 calls for service, 5 ALS calls, 25 BLS calls, and the difference made up with just your wires, your trees, those types of calls of reserves. One notable call we did have, we had a CPR call Friday last week. The crew should be commended. The crew being supervising EMT Britton, Paul Brooks, Angel Anderson. They worked this code for about an hour, along with the Atlantic Care paramedics. When they cleared the hospital, she did have pulses back and she wasn't breathing. However, unfortunately, the hospital was not able to sustain her. So she did unfortunately pass away. So, if nothing else, hopefully we gave the family a little bit of time to get in there and say the proper goodbyes. But again, the crew, they really busted their rears, and they should be commended for their effort. Running a code for an hour is a really long time. So, on a lighter note, today was the first day of kids camp. And to reiterate what the deputy mayor said, yes, those children should all be asleep. English teamwork. We saw a lot of smiling faces and a lot of happy kids. So the rest of the week should be pretty exciting. I'm excited to see what we're going to do next year. So we're off to a good start.
Thank you.
Thank you. Dan, do you have anything for us?
Nothing. Perfect.
Paul, the one thing I missed, I hope you're going to get.
First, I want to bring up the DOT sent us a notice regarding the Route 50 bridge over Cedar Swamp Creek. They are going to be hosting a virtual public hearing for residents to learn more about it. That public hearing will be from July 12th to the 18th, and I'll post the information on the township's website and Facebook page. They actually give a web page location where you can go and learn more about the project. Just to give everybody a brief update, there will be a southbound detour for stage 1 of construction, which will be about 15 to 18 months in duration. So southbound traffic will be detoured using Tuckahoe Road and Tyler Road. They will have temporary traffic signals at either end, out on Tuckahoe Road and Route 50 on both ends of Tyler to control traffic at those locations. And they anticipate construction beginning in the fall of 2024. So we're still quite a ways away, but the DOT is going to have a virtual public hearing regarding that, where they'll give more details on the construction and what's going on there. And then I've been working with Mayor Corson on doing an evaluation of our street lighting throughout the township. Believe it or not, there's over 1,500 street lights throughout the township. The township pays a little over $220,000 annually.
Our budget is $270 this year.
$270, but we're spending, when we look at it, that's, so it'll be between $220 and $270 is what the actual bill will be. There are a lot of lights that are on county highways and state highways where the speeds are high. They're not roads really set up for pedestrian traffic, and that we could save maybe 15 to 25% of that bill by reducing some of our streetlights. Now, I don't think we should ever look at not including, we should always have streetlights at intersections, major curves, dead-end streets, and obviously our neighborhood streets that have streetlights, especially with our sidewalks involved, should always have maintained streetlighting.
There's a lot of redundancy on lights in Steville Methodist Church, for example. There's 2 lights directly across the street from each other. They're not. One's effective, 2 is a waste of money. So I've asked Paul to look at it. Lights before any of our, we're going to get a list of lights to review. We can look at them ourselves personally if we want to, and if we can remove some of them, we'll do it at this level with Paul's recommendation. You don't have to go far to see other municipalities. Dennis Township, for example, Route 9 from Seattle Causeway all the way to the Upper Township line. There's 2 street lights, one at 550 and one at Seattle Boulevard. They don't have a street light anywhere. The minute you jump into Upper Township, there's one every 3 poles or better. Same thing on Corson Tavern Road. They have one on 515 Corson Tavern Road, and there's one in front of Lake and Shore Campground. Not another traffic light or a street light until you get to Upper Township, and I think it's every 3 poles average. So I'm not saying we're going to eliminate them all, but there's some that can go. So I just think it's something we need to look at, and there's multiple benefits to it. Our grid does not support us now in the summertime. We have rolling blackouts, one thing and another. So I think it's I think we can get ahead of it, and plus the economic savings.
And I think, Mayor, you hit a good point. We pay for 1 traffic light, or what's the total we have?
1,500 traffic lights.
Or 1,500 traffic lights. So you pay for the street lights. You pay for them all. So if somebody sees a street light that is not working, if you can email City Hall or drop it off at the desk, we'll contact ACE and get that. We'll get that pole lit up because we're paying for it anyway.
Yeah, we pay for them whether they're working or not.
Yep.
And I think we can do better and leave less of a footprint.
That's all I had, Mayor.
All right. Barbara, do you have anything more? I'm sorry, yeah. Okay, Barbara, I guess we'll move on to the agenda here.
Okay. Item number 1, we have congratulating the Upper Township Green Hornets for their wrestling achievements in 2021.
All right,
Okay,
well,
at this point, we're gonna turn it over to Kim, who's
excited
in
about
charge of
this.
recreation here, and let her call these youngsters up here, and we'll come up down there and greet you guys and hand you your,
so before I read through the names and their accomplishments, I just want everybody in the audience to understand that these are children who are participating in a recreation sports program, traveling all over the state and the country, competing against kids who are paying hundreds and thousands of dollars a month to train to wrestle, and they're winning. And it really speaks volumes to the program, the coaching staff, the dedication of the parents. So they really should be honored, and we're really excited to be able to congratulate all of them here today. So I think the first thing I'll do is I'll ask the coaches if you guys could come up, because we're gonna make sure that you guys are all in the picture. And then I'm gonna read off each individual name and their accomplishment, and as I read your name, kids, if you guys could come up to the front and we'll present you with your recognition. There's a lot, so I don't know if we're all gonna fit. What are you gonna do?
Yeah, we should stay right here.
Yeah, stay up here and just hand it down to them, so. Hi, guys. There you go.
Jerry Stroh, when'd you start wrestling? How did you know? I didn't know you were Greek.
Okay, so as I read your name off, guys, if you could come up and Coach Frank will give you your resolution. So first, we have Shane Wheeler. Shane took 3rd place at the USAW New Jersey State Tournament in 2021 and 4th place at the War at the Shore Nationals in 2021. And we have Finn Wheeler. Finn took 4th place at the 2021 War at the Shore Nationals. Come on up, Finn. I should have mentioned that we're playing catch up from COVID years and this year. So we have 2021 and 2022 to recognize. Luke McHale, he took 6th place at the 2021 USAW New Jersey State Tournament. We're gonna get that. We're doing 2021 and then 2022. Okay. Jerry, always giving me instructions. Trent Lira, 5th place 2021 USAW New Jersey State Tournament, 2nd place at the 2021 War at the Shore Nationals. Braden Henriksen, 4th place 2021 USAW New Jersey State Tournament, and Braden is also killing it as a new big brother. Bella Cox, 8th place, 2021 USAW New Jersey State Tournament. And this kid, Logan Hayes. 6th place, USAW New Jersey State Tournament. Yep, that's it. Bryn Cunningham. Now, Bryn and Kira are sisters, and they are something to be seen. So you're going to have to hold your applause while I list off all of the awards for each of them. So for Bryn, we have 1st place, 2021 USAW New Jersey State Tournament. 1st place, War at the Shore Nationals. 1st place, Northeast Girls Folk Style Nationals. 2nd place, Atlantic City Summer Nationals. Come on down, Bryn. Okay, and again, her sister Kira, so hold your applause till the end here. Kira Cunningham, 1st place, 2021 USAW New Jersey State Tournament. 1st place, Northeast Girls Folk Style Nationals. 1st place, 2021 Atlantic City Summer Nationals. 2nd place, 2021 War at the Shore Nationals in the Boys Division. 2nd place at the 2021 War at the Shore Nationals in the Girls Division. 2nd place, Tulsa Nationals Kickoff Classic. And 4th place at the Tulsa Nationals. Come on down here. So that's our 2021 recognitions. We're going to go into the 2022 awards now. All right, so we have Olivia Fowler. First place 2022 War at the Shore Nationals. First place 2022 USAW New Jersey State Tournament. Second place, the 2022 Mid-Atlantic Wrestling Association. All right. Asher Camforo, 7th place, 2022 USAW New Jersey State Tournament. We already have Bella Cox up here. She also placed in 2022. First place, 2022 USAW New Jersey State Tournament. Third place, 2022 Mid-Atlantic Wrestling Association. And Braden Catlett, who I don't think Braden's here, but we'll acknowledge him anyway. 5th place, 2022 USAW New Jersey State Tournament. Braden Henriksen, again, placed in 2022. 8th place at the Mid-Atlantic Wrestling Association. Bryn Cunningham, 1st place, USAW New Jersey State Tournament. 2nd place, War at the Shore Nationals. Cam King, 3rd place, USAW New Jersey State Tournament. Cameron Daniel, 7th place, USAW New Jersey State Tournament. Carter McMahon, 6th place, Mid-Atlantic Wrestling Association. Danny Schleider, 5th place, USAW New Jersey State Tournament. 6th place, War at the Shore Nationals. 8th place, Mid-Atlantic Wrestling Association. Jack Lauer, 2nd place, War at the Shore Nationals. 3rd place, USAW New Jersey State Tournament. 7th place, Mid-Atlantic Wrestling Association. And his sister is here accepting on his behalf. Jada Heaton, 2nd place, War at the Shore Nationals. 4th place, Mid-Atlantic Wrestling Association. 5th place, USAW New Jersey State Tournament. Jeff Heaton, 7th place, Mid-Atlantic Wrestling Association. Jordan Lauer, 4th place, USAW New Jersey State Tournament. Josh Roman, 8th place, Mid-Atlantic Wrestling Association. Kiera Cunningham, 1st place, USAW New Jersey State Tournament. 2nd place, War at the Shore Nationals. 3rd place, War at the Shore Nationals. 3rd place, USAW New Jersey State Tournament. So those doubles, one is a boys division, one's a girls division, so she placed them both. Luke McHale, 8th place, USAW New Jersey State Tournament. Rafi Nadig, 3rd place, War at the Shore Nationals. Xavier Berkman, 6th place, USAW New Jersey State Tournament. Zayden Flynn, 6th place, Mid-Atlantic Wrestling Association. So those are our honorees for 2021 and 2022 this far. I understand that we had a few placers at Melee to Midnight down in Virginia last weekend, and they're just continuing to build on all their accomplishments. So congratulations, guys.
I just want to say, none of this would be possible without the assistance of the coaches. The coaches do a phenomenal job. And the parents, they contribute their time, and everybody's a volunteer. And the parents that bring these kids and make the dedication for these children is a phenomenal asset for our community. Thank you, Coach. Thank you, Coach. Thank you. All right, everybody's. All right, all the parents are getting pictures. All right, everybody got their pictures? Couple more. Hang on, guys. All right, great job, guys. Come on, Max. All right, we'll give it some minutes. Mike, could you get those doors?
Mr. Reeves, Craig, is the number 17 the issue, the dumpster issue?
No.
What is it?
That's past the consent agenda.
23, got it. 23.
That's new business.
All right.
Yes, under new business.
Thank you, Mike. All right, we're going to get on with our agenda here.
Thank you all for your patience. It really is important to those kids. It's a big deal for them.
We have the consent agenda. Before we move on with that, though, I just wanted to point out that item number 11 on the consent agenda, the renewal of alcoholic beverage licenses for the license year 2022, is for 316 Roosevelt, which is yesterday's, and Lavari Land, trading as Lavari's. With that being said, all resolutions listed below are considered to be routine in nature, will be enacted by one motion. If the mayor or any of the committee member wishes a particular resolution to be considered separately, will be removed from the consent agenda and acted on separately.
I'll move the consent agenda.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Ms. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Newman?
Yes.
Mr. Pankos?
Yes.
Mayor Corso?
Yes.
Motion carries. In favor.
Okay,
Next item on the agenda is public hearing for the Deauville Inn Strathmere 201 Willard Liquor LLC, renewal of the beverage license, alcoholic beverage license for the license year 2022.
Okay, we're going to turn to Dan Reeves, our legal counsel, before we get too far into this.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll begin by stating that the licensee had submitted a timely and complete application for license renewal, has paid all necessary fees to the township and the state. We did receive a written objection to the renewal requesting a special condition to require a security guard at one of the entrances on the licensed premises that is adjacent to the state park. And the objections referenced specifically that there were instances of service of alcohol outside of the licensed area and outside of the permissible hours that are permitted by township ordinance. And so the procedure to follow under state regulations is upon an application for renewal of a liquor license, when there is an objection that is submitted, the township will have a public hearing. This is a non-judicial hearing. There won't be testimony, there won't be anyone sworn in, there won't be any cross-examination. It is a public hearing akin to a public hearing on an ordinance. And any member of the public will have an opportunity to comment on the renewal or the application for renewal of the liquor license. And the licensee will have an opportunity to respond to public comments. And just to be clear for members of the public, the purpose of this hearing is to address the renewal of the license. Please refrain from unrelated issues such as land use or environmental issues. They are not part of this proceeding, and they, in most cases, can't be acted upon by the Township Committee. Anyway, they're preempted by other bodies that oversee those areas. So with that said, if the committee has any questions for me, I'd be happy to address them.
Does anyone have any questions at this time? Or? Okay, we'll open it to the public then, I guess, and then we'll go from there. And this time we'll open it to the public. Yes, please come forward and state your.
Good evening, Mayor, Committee. My name's Dorothy McCrossin. I'm an attorney in Ocean City, and I represent the licensee in this matter. I'd just like to make a preliminary comment and then cede the podium to whatever objectors may be in the room so that you can hear what they have to say. And what I'd like to do is address their comments, if that's acceptable to the committee. I would just like to point out that we were here last year under certain similar circumstances. Last year, this meeting was on June 14th, and that morning, an objection was filed through the solicitor's office. And the committee at that time, which was composed of some different people, determined that that objection was not timely. So the application was renewed pretty much without comment. This year, that's very same objection, the objection from last year, it's dated last year. It's dated June 14th of last year, the date of your meeting last year, was sent to the solicitor Friday at around 4:30. Now, my reading of NJAC 13-2:2.9 indicates that no application may be disapproved without the issuing authority first affording the applicant an opportunity to be heard. And we're here to be heard, so I think that you can comply with that. And providing the applicant with at least 5 days notice thereof. So it appears that by state regulation, the application could not be disapproved tonight because we did not have notice of Mr. Wentz's objection 5 days prior to today.
There was an objection almost 2 weeks ago.
There was an objection received on June 13th. There was a subsequent objection received on June 17th.
Agreed. I'm addressing strictly Mr. Wentz's sort of recycled complaint from last year. And then with the committee's permission, I'll take my seat and ask to come back up and address whatever comments you hear today.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Committee members, my name is Ray Wentz. Good evening. I'm a partner with the law firm of Nemad, Davis & Goldstein. Ms. McCrossin is correct. There was an objection submitted about the day of the renewal hearing last year. Your solicitor determined that it was untimely. We disagreed with that decision. And in fact, your solicitor, who sits here now, this year took the initiative to call ABC and speak with their in-house counsel to say that timely is not defined. And in fact, if an objection comes in before the hearing, that really would be timely because there is no time limit assessed to that. So we are here today properly objecting to this application. Ms. McCrossin is right, I'm not the initiating objector in this case. Another neighbor is, who put together quite a compelling presentation, I think, that certainly warrants your attention. We did piggyback and remind the board we were here last year. And I'm here just to remind you that this is not going away. The Deauville is not complying with the rules and regulations of not only the ABC but other agencies. And as Mr. Reeves took away my thunder, we'll deal with DEP and code issues next week after the holiday. It's unbelievable how they fly in the face of what you told them not to do, and they still do it. I've never seen it. I've practiced law for almost 20 years now, up and down the coast from Monmouth County down to Cape May. I've never seen a business owner spit in the face of the township like Dr. Fox does. I've never seen it, with no repercussion. Here you have evidence tonight of liquor all over the place, on the streets, on the beaches, going into cars, completely without any regard to the rules or just basic safety. So I've marked what I previously submitted in 2021 as Burger 1. I sent it to most of you via email, but here are paper copies. Mr. Crossan has a copy, but not marked. Here are copies for each of the members. I just don't know what else to do, except for judicial intervention at some point. And I don't want to go to Superior Court. It's expensive for everyone. But something has to be done. I'm not sure whether or not they're still serving outside of hours as of this year, but they were last year in terms of breakfast and whatnot. Again, one of our neighbors has a more thorough presentation for this year, but please take it seriously. The township has been placed on notice of numerous violations over and over and over again. If something were to happen at this point, I think the township is on notice of a dangerous situation, an extremely dangerous situation, which, by the way, strips immunity in cases of torts. With that, I respectfully request that, honestly, that the committee deny the application at this point. Let the Deauville explain themselves to the ABC. Because again, the township is on notice of an extremely dangerous situation. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Is this different? Do I need to swear in or anything for this meeting? Okay. My name is Dodie Regan Coratini, and I am a neighbor of the licensee that's seeking to renew their liquor license. As the issuing authority for retail alcohol beverage control licenses issued, renewed, and transferred within the township, and the governing body for enforcing disciplinary matters, I would like to thank the committee members for inviting me to speak this evening and to share my objections to the renewal of the ABC license for Willard Liquors, LLC, operating as the Deauville Inn. First, I would like to acknowledge a license is issued to a party, and oftentimes the primary party or named licensee may be unaware of activities that are occurring within the licensed establishment. Most of the information that I'm going to be presenting tonight is not new information. Much of it is public information. Some of the items may seem rather insignificant, but when you look at the totality of all the violations and the pattern, it establishes a pattern of continued behavior of noncompliance. Since the approved transfer of the plenary retail consumption license from the Deauville Inn to Willard Liquors LLC in October 2019, a significant number of complaints have been lodged against the licensee's business operations. These documented complaints can be found in public meeting minutes from various committee meetings and planning board meetings. Other complaints have been documented in emails and other correspondence sent to the current and previous mayor, the township administrator, the clerk, committee members, the township engineer, as well as documented with the State and County Department of Environmental Protection, the State Police, the State Park Police, and the Division of Alcohol Beverage Control. I'm going to submit, for record, a copy of the planning board meetings from April 15th, 2021. So I don't...
Yeah, you.
In this particular meeting set of minutes, there are over 12 resident complaints, neighbors of the Dovell Inn, registering concerns over their operation and lack of compliance. I'm not going to be submitting, but also referencing the more recent Township Planning Board Resolution PB06 of 2001. It was a 50-page document, so I didn't feel it was necessary to print the entire document again. It's a matter of public record. The resolution's accompanying minutes outline over 60 complaints from 15 neighbors who went on record to make public comments about the licensee's operation and the negative impact on our community and quality of life. The complaints primarily focus on issues relating to noise and noise abatement, parking, septic tanks, trash, alcohol off premises, inability to present information at the last liquor license renewal meeting, lack of enforcement by the township, the state police, the state park police, public drunkenness and disorderly conduct. In addition to the neighbors' complaints, the licensee has committed several acts in violation of state and local laws, as well as being cited for violations or incidents of noncompliance with the alcohol beverage control laws, rules, and regulations. Specifically, in September 2020, the licensee was served with notice of charge for 3 separate violations of state executive orders. The penalty for these violations was a 25-day suspension of their ABC license. The licensee originally entered a plea of not guilty, but later withdrew their plea and withdrew their not guilty plea and entered a plea of no contest, whereby reducing the licensee's suspension from 25 days to 15 days. The licensee subsequently negotiated a monetary settlement to avert 5 days of the license suspension, and the remaining 10 days of the license suspension are being held in abeyance until May of 2023. This means that it is placed on a temporary or conditional delay, pending that there are no subsequent violations during the abatement period. The license is part of the licensee, as part of their 2022 license renewal application, is required to disclose the penalty imposed in lieu of a suspension on their application, and I certainly hope that they did. Last year, the licensee was also cited for several licensing violations: failure to notify change of fact, which is a condition of any change in license, failure to display proper posters, and failure to maintain a true and correct copy of an employee list on their premises. Apart from the formal violations of the licensee has received, it has also established a pattern of engaging in prohibited activities. Generally, a municipality, by ordinance, establishes the lawful hours during which alcoholic beverages can be sold. The licensee must check with their respective municipalities to understand any limitations on closing and opening hours. Upper Township's Ordinance 002-2012 prohibits on-premises consumption of alcohol on Sunday mornings prior to 10 a.m. During a portion of 2021, the licensee served alcohol on-premise for consumption on Sunday mornings prior to 10 a.m. I have exhibit photos related to that. Just bear with me.
And just to let you know that that was all entered into the record for the commissioners. So that's all on PDF. No, I'm just letting you know that we have, you can give it to me and I'll pass it all over. Give me the wall. And then what I'll do is, but again, everything that you sent is memorialized in electronic.
The Township Committee, being the issuing authority, can investigate the licensee's book of accounts, which are to be maintained on their premises for a period of 5 years. The record receipts will determine how many alcoholic beverages were sold outside of operating hours. As a part of their existing pattern of violations, in 2020, the licensee engaged in prohibited promotions by serving bottomless mimosas over the course of a weekend event, and all you can drink for a set price unduly promotes the consumption of alcoholic beverages and is therefore prohibited under NJAC 13:2-23.6. I'd like to submit a photo for this as well. The Township Committee, being the issuing authority, can investigate the licensee's book of records to validate this violation, as well as to determine the number of alcoholic beverages sold under the prohibited promotion law. The licensee is also responsible for ensuring patrons are not consuming open container alcohol outside of their licensed premises. The licensee has failed to ensure alcoholic beverages are consumed within their licensed area. In the current calendar year and throughout 2020 and 2021, customers frequently exited the licensed premises with open containers and consumed the alcohol in public areas on the beach sides of the property and in the public streets at the end of Willard Avenue. Meeting minutes from the first exhibit of April 15th Planning Board meeting document that alcoholic beverages would no longer be sold, served, and consumed at the street side end of Willard Avenue. In furtherance of their pattern of violations, last year employees of the licensee walked outside their licensed premises to sell and serve alcohol in areas not covered by their liquor license. Waiters and waitresses were seen leaving their licensed premises and approaching beachgoers and people on boats moored offshore that were outside of their area in public beaches and under the Bridge Commission's area. Photos of the beachside off-premises consumption of open containers and the beachside sale of alcohol outside their licensed premises have been previously supplied to members of the Upper Township Planning Board, the former township solicitor, to the licensee's attorney last November 23rd at the Planning Board meeting, and copies of these photos have been entered into public record as exhibits to the resolution PB 06-2021. The same or similar photos were also provided to the Township Committee members, clerk, and Township Administrator earlier this month in connection with my written objection to the license renewal. The licensee may also be in violation of Section NJS 13:2-35.2, prohibition of sales of packaged goods from areas other than their principal bar room. I have another exhibit I'd like to submit, and I only have 2 of these. So.
Yep, just give it to the solicitor.
Thank you.
License holders who have the ability to sell packaged goods in original containers for consumption off premises are required to have displays of the product within the bona fide bar area of their establishment. The prior license holder had their displays inside the bona fide area of the bar room. However, after the licensee transfer occurred, the new licensee has relocated the packaged good displays outside of the bar room, and they have packaged goods being sold at a point-of-sale purchase lobby shop located in a separate room away from the bar. The licensee advertises the lobby shop as a packaged good and apparel store. The store is equipped with multiple refrigerated cases, apparel racks, shelving for wine and apparel, a counter, and a cash register. The photo illustrates the change in the locations from where it was under the former licensee and under the new licensee. Local municipalities have considerable authority in the licensing and regulating of alcohol-related businesses. As the issuing authority, this committee has the following powers: the ability to approve a license transfer and the ability to approve a renewal application as well as to decline those applications. Limiting the hours of retail alcohol sales, regulating the conduct of any retail established license by selling alcoholic beverages, the regulated nature and condition of the license on the premises, and limiting the license to cover only specific areas. If the committee feels that the cumulative effect of the documented complaints from the neighbors and the ongoing pattern of the licensee's violations are not enough to warrant a denial of the license, then it is requested that the licensee be conditional upon the terms and conditions of the Township Resolution PB 6-2021, as well as other factors. So they were recently issued, the licensee was recently issued a planning board
I'm sorry.
resolution.
I'm gonna interrupt you for just 1 minute. I think we're past the typical 5-minute time period for your comment. I just want to make sure that everyone who's here to comment on this subject does get an opportunity to do so. Are there other members of the public who are here tonight to comment on, or to raise an objection to the renewal of the application?
I think we're gonna let her go, Dan, because she
Okay.
hasn't been redundant yet, and it's actually good testimony. So I will ask if anybody else wants to testify, if you agree with what was said, just instead of recapping the whole thing, you just say, stand up and say you've agreed with it. I think that'd be helpful.
Thank you, I appreciate it. So if the license is not, if the decision to renew the license is approved, I'm requesting that conditions be put on it. Specifically in requiring the licensee to comply with the terms and conditions of the recent Planning Board Resolution PB 6-021, specifically related to music inside and out, the required valet parking, the number of times and the cutoff time that music can stop, parking, maintaining ADA parking that's compliant with the law. I don't believe they've implemented the ADA parking spaces that they were required to as part of the resolution. Installing the sidewalk because it will address public safety issues, and limiting occupancy on the lawn area of the raised septic bed to 60 seats, which was part of the Planning Board resolution. They're currently holding large events in excess of 60 people. In addition to that, I would like the committee to consider asking the licensee to erect a wooden fence on the beach from their parking area to the low tide line on the bay to separate their licensed premises from the public beach and from the Big Bridge Commission property adjacent to the footprint of their licensed premises. They should also not allow the beach entrance, that area, to be used for ingress or egress into their establishment. I would also request that the licensee be required during the periods of Memorial Day through Labor Day to provide sufficient personnel necessary to function as security guards with no less than 4 employees on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday from 11 a.m. to 1/2 hour after closing time, and 3 on other days during the week for the same hours. Said security guards should be responsible for manning the physical property entries and other property access points which do not have fixed entrances to prevent patrons from leaving the licensed premises with open containers and preventing disturbances in the community. I would also request that a condition be placed on the licensee to require them to comply with applicable noise ordinances and undertake structural modifications if necessary to eliminate audible noises greater than 50 feet hearing distance. I submitted a separate document to the committee members requesting that they consider reviewing the local ordinance on noise and nuisance so that it's clear for the state police, who is the enforcing agency, to apply the ordinance and issue citations. The way that the current ordinance is written, it's difficult for them to understand past practice and any sort of planning board resolutions that would allow the licensee to have certain noises that are outside of the normal everyday noises. And I would also request that the licensee be required to relocate their displays for off-premises consumption within the bar area, or they should have that portion of their liquor license suspended if they don't have the displays within the licensed bar area. Hopefully, I've presented information to you. Again, most of it is not new. I feel that many of you have heard this information before. I feel it establishes a pattern of noncompliance, and I'm respectfully requesting, since you are the issuing authority for the license, that you take these concerns seriously. It is your responsibility to protect our community and make sure people are upholding the license requirements associated with these licenses. They're very expensive licenses. Many people want them. They're limited. People that are awarded them or purchase them should be abide by the regulations. If you purchase a restaurant and you're not a restaurant owner in the past, you should employ people that understand the regulations. It's a small pamphlet. It's easy to read. It's easy to understand. I read it. I understood it. It seems also very easy to apply. So I appreciate the consideration given by the committee members. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak on this? And obviously, if the topic wasn't hit, just if you could agree with her or disagree, but if...
It was a totally different topic.
Oh, no, this is on the liquor license only, okay. Yeah. Well, yes, sir.
Hi, Frank Coratini, 21 West Winthrop Road. I just wanted to say that I agree with the previous comments. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else who would like to comment on the liquor license application? I guess,
Yeah, procedure. So now we will give the licensee the opportunity to respond.
okay.
Oh, and I'm sorry, Ms. McCroskey, did you have a chance to see all the exhibits that were submitted this evening by Ms. Coratini?
I have. I've seen them. Thank you. My client purchased the property, as was noted, in October of 2019 and undertook a renovation of the property, an improvement of the property. And it's certainly understandable that neighbors who would become used to the old Deauville have noticed the change that has taken place since the menu has been improved and the historic property has been improved and preserved. And there's no question that there may be more customers there than the neighbors are used to. My client made application to the planning board to change a building on the property to install restrooms, to get rid of porta pots, because although they were inexpensive and easy and temporary, they thought that that would improve the site. It was later determined, after lengthy hearings, that that would not require site plan approval, but since the township had not seen a site plan approval during the latter years that the former owner had used the property, and the property had changed substantially, the township asked my client to come forward with site plan approval to essentially legalize what had happened on the property over the years, both by the prior owner and by my client. So my client filed a site plan approval and now the township has an accurate site plan of what occurred. It was a marathon series of meetings. Numerous residents got up, spoke about their concerns about the property. Residents also got up and complimented the owner of the property for the way that the new business is being operated and how responsive he's been to the community and to the neighbors when complaints are brought forward. I believe Mayor Corson was on the planning board at the time, and he will doubtless remember these very long and numerous meetings. So the planning board final meeting was on November 23rd of 2021. The planning board's resolution from that meeting includes numerous conditions which the applicant volunteered to have incorporated in the resolution in order to address the concerns of the neighbors. Because the applicant is trying to be a good neighbor, understanding that it's bringing additional people into this neighborhood and trying to balance the business needs and the fact that this bar has been there longer than any of the residents have lived there, with the concerns of their neighbors in order to try to reach an amicable situation. Among the things in this resolution, which is of record with your planning board, my client agreed that they would restrict the pumping of their septic system to 8 o'clock in the morning or after, no earlier. That was a concern voiced by the residents. My clients have made arrangements with their service provider to make sure that that occurs. They've installed a sound limiter so that they control the noise, the music outside, just as they do inside. And beyond that, they have voluntarily limited the use of outdoor live music to only 6 times per summer. Your ordinance would allow them to have outside music every night. But that was such a huge concern for the neighbors that they agreed to have live music Memorial Day weekend, 4th of July weekend, Labor Day weekend. That's it. There will not be live music at the Deauville other than that. And when there is live music, there will be a sound limiter, a noise limiter, so that the band doesn't control how loud the music is. Management controls it in consideration for the neighbors. They've decided to cut off live music and DJs at 9:30, which is earlier than your ordinance requires. With respect to, and also there was a complaint that they had not thought about, that the boats who dock at the Deauville play loud music. They've installed signage prohibiting music on the boats when docked. The music travels across the water, it bothers the neighbors. They agreed, they installed those signs. They installed no alcohol signs at all entrances. They have 8 security guards whom they hire to make sure people understand they can't step off the Deauville property into the dead-end street at Willard, because now you're on public property, and they enforce that. Is it perfect? Probably not. Do people still do it? Undoubtedly. But they're making an effort to keep their customers on their property in compliance with the law. Similarly, at the ungated entrance between their property and the state park,
It's
they have...
actually the Bridge Commission abuts it, not the...
I'm sorry, the Bridge Commission.
Yes.
They have signs, they have guards, they try to keep the people on their side. Now, during this planning board meeting, there were violations that were raised, such as having a brunch at which alcohol was served. That was brought to their attention. It has stopped. There's been no recurrence. The bottomless mimosas happened once. It was brought to their attention that it was illegal. Happened once, and it was stopped, and has never happened again. There's really no need to incorporate the conditions from the planning board resolution, but there's no harm. My clients are bound by them. They're following them to the best of their ability. They did it voluntarily. We offered those conditions after this meeting. There was an allegation in one of the letters that you received, and I don't want to misstate the last speaker's last name, so I'll refer to her as the speaker who gave the presentation. I got the first name down, but the last name I do not. That there's an increase in number of alcohol-related emergency calls, somehow attributable to the Deauville. There's no documentation to that effect, that is the result of the Deauville's actions. There's an increase in the number of intoxicated underage drinkers. There's no documentation to that effect. These are allegations that are unsubstantiated. There was testimony about violations issued to the Deauville in September of 2020. Now, we can all remember that September of 2020, we were in the heart of the COVID epidemic. That day was September 5th. It was Saturday of Labor Day weekend, and the ABC came in and found people who were not properly wearing masks. That was a violation of the executive order that you were told about. There was another violation where the poster that was on the wall about fetal alcohol syndrome, fetal alcohol syndrome, did not include the image of a pregnant woman. When that was brought to my client's attention, they addressed it and have been in compliance ever since. They were also it was also brought to their attention that they must have a full employee list on site at all times. These are not violations of misuse of an alcohol license. These are technical violations. That doesn't mean they're not important. They're easily remedied, and when they were brought to my client's attention, they were remedied, they remain remedied. The committee does not need to be concerned that these violations are recurring. Sale of packaged goods from an unauthorized area. As you could probably imagine, the ABC has been at the Deauville many, many, many times, often at the request of concerned neighbors. That where they sell their packaged goods is open for everyone to see. My clients have never been notified by the ABC that there's a problem with the way they're doing that. If the ABC were to come in tonight and tell them that there was something wrong with it, they would address it. But at this point, with all the visits that they've had from the ABC, from the state police, from the various enforcing agencies, no one has told them that they're doing anything wrong with their packaged goods sales. There was a suggestion that a fence be installed at the beach entrance. I think my clients would welcome the installation of a fence there and would happily pay for it, just as they've agreed to pay to put a sidewalk all along the public right-of-way that's on the perimeter of their property, even though that's a county road. However, the DEP beach access rules for the public would likely prohibit that. If they were able to, they would, but they cannot prohibit access for the public to the beaches. You've been asked by two speakers, Mr. Wendt, who has all my respect, excellent attorney, knows this property well from our various encounters, mostly in this room, about this building, and the previous speaker. They've both asked you to take this seriously. And I agree, this is a serious matter. This is an establishment that gives jobs to hundreds and hundreds of people. They provide entertainment, fine dining, a destination within Strathmere and within the township for many, many people. And they take it very seriously. And they understand that a license can be revoked and that a license is a privilege that they're not entitled to and that they have to earn it every single year and frankly every single day. Any violation, it could be taken away. So yes, I agree, you need to take it seriously and I don't doubt that you do, but please be assured that my client takes it very seriously. They do everything they can to be in compliance. When it's brought to their attention that they're not in compliance, they immediately take steps to rectify whatever is out of compliance. And with that, I thank you for your attention and ask you to please vote to renew this license. My clients will continue to work to be good neighbors with the citizens of Strathmere.
I do have a couple questions.
Absolutely.
I guess the north side where it butts the bridge. Do you have adequate signage there for when
There's
you're
been
leaving, go
there's-
out well beyond this point, or?
Yes, Mayor, there's signage on the beach there.
And, I think Paul agreed with you, we would have a hard time putting the fence there at the sideline.
Yeah, the DEP, their whole public access rule is you can't restrict access along the public waterways, and they would not get a permit for that.
Okay.
And they do have a little bit of a fence, you know,
On the upland.
on the beach to kind of delineate where their property begins and kind of
Right.
delineates that, and they have that staff that at various, I won't say it's staff 24/7, but it's staff during their busier times that kind of, you know, you gotta check in if you're trying to get service there.
And you brought up the planning board resolution about the sidewalks. Do you
Yes, sir.
estimate a timeframe for sidewalks?
If you recall, they have to install them before May of 2023,
Okay.
and the application for site plan to the county is in the process of being filed.
I have some questions for Dan.
Absolutely. Well, why don't, if there's any other questions for Donnie?
Okay.
Yes.
Ms. McCrossin, let's do that, and we can close the public comment portion.
Well, first question, how many employees are at the Duval?
My client tells me about 130.
130, okay, because I think somebody made the comment that there were hundreds of employees there, and I was really, kind of interested in what that number might be.
That was my hyperbole, Committeeman, I'm sorry.
My other question is, and I'm not sure if you have seen it, but presented to committee were numerous photographs which included several of Duville personnel who were actually carrying package goods off of the property to deliver them to someone on the beach. There was a photograph that showed a server on the dock. What action items or action plan is in place by the Duville currently to eliminate that sort of thing from happening? And what action was taken against the employees who were clearly violating these statutes?
Thank you for bringing that up because I overlooked that in my remarks. It's impossible to tell what the date is on those photographs. If we were in court, those photographs couldn't be admitted because we don't know who took them or what the date was or whether they accurately depict what they purport to depict. If you look at the photograph of the young lady who is standing at a boat, you have no idea what she's doing. She could be taking them a hamburger. You only see her from behind. There's no indication of what she's doing. But my clients have been counseled by the ABC and the state police, more specifically, as to what they can and cannot do on the docks. There is strict enforcement of no service of alcohol on the docks. People can buy closed containers and take it onto their boats, and then they're off the licensed premises. They can't play music, but then they're not within the jurisdiction. But my clients do not serve on the docks, do not serve to people on the boats. And that's a strict rule that my clients have put into place after they've been advised. The ABC, as I said, comes there periodically. They're not there in a punitive role. Frequently, it's an educational role to say, you don't have an employee list. You have docks, make sure you don't serve out there. My clients take that to heart and comply with the instructions that they receive.
What type of training is done for the employees of the Duville for these rules and regulations that the ABC has in place, and also the requirements of the local governing body?
I could bring up the general manager, Anna Motor, but I can tell you that they have wait staff meetings. They tell the employees what is permitted, and it trickles down from the top, from the general manager, as to what they can and cannot do.
Is there documented training that's signed off by the employees?
Yes, there is, I'm told. I've had a Motor here today who is the general manager, and that's who I'm looking to for answers to some of your questions.
Understood. That was all that I had. I have one for Dan, possibly.
Sure. Again, any other questions for Ms. McCrossin? Great, then.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Dan, my question for you is, should the committee agree to renew this license, can we do it conditionally to be reviewed every X number of days? Could we come back to a 45-day review?
So the committee does have the ability to impose special conditions, but the renewal is by state regulation. Suffice to say, I'm not familiar with such a condition, nor is it alluded to in the regulations. So there are special conditions you impose, and I don't want to say, yes, you can or can't do that. Certain things, for example, one of the requests was, can you require them to put up a fence? Normally that, other than the DEP restriction that would prevent a fence, that is a type of special condition you could impose. But I will add, Mr. Coggins, that for purposes of reviewing, I would be inclined to agree with Ms. McCross on this point. The Deauville Inn is subject to review 365 days a year. The township is the issuing authority through its officials and through its police force. It has the ability to review the actions and the conditions at the Deauville Inn and to conduct its own investigations into those matters. And so while tonight there is, the Deauville Inn owners have to actually come forward and apply for renewal of their liquor license, and they have the burden of proving that they qualify for that renewal, they have to maintain compliance throughout the year, and they're always subject to potential suspension or even revocation of their license, if, as any liquor license holder is, if they're found to be significantly out of compliance.
We seem to have the bulk of the issues occurring during the summer months when things are crowded, and of course business is at its peak for this establishment. Hence my question again about a potential 45-day review if there are additional complaints from the local community within that 45-day period. Are we in a position where we could revoke that license?
Well, there is a process in place. So the answer is yes. But tonight is a public hearing on the renewal of a license, which is one procedure that is available under state law. There is an alternate procedure where it is a quasi-judicial hearing, where essentially we conduct a trial. The committee acts as the judges and makes a determination regarding any conditions to be placed on the license or suspension or revocation, which is appealable to the Division of Alcoholic Beverage Control. And so in terms of, again, not to be difficult about the issue, but I would say you don't need a 45-day review period because you can review them at will, whenever you would like to investigate. But in the context of formal charges, which is what would lead to a quasi-judicial hearing, there would be a thorough investigation. So tonight the committee is relying upon public comment. The committee is welcome to take those comments for what they are, but recognize that they have not been investigated by any representative of the township. And so we can't say whether these claims are substantiated or unsubstantiated at this point. But again, in the interest of a public comment this evening, there are considerations that are worth taking into account.
Okay, thank you.
My question concerns, for example, on this packet here that was brought forth by Mr.
Litz.
Right. I briefly perused it. Obviously, did not go over it in detail. You know, we talked about the date problem, but also in all the investigations that have been done here, they're all 2020 and 2021, and actually most of them are all 2020. And I realize that the date on here is June 14th, 2021, and we talked about that at the beginning. We talked about this at the beginning. But all the evidence here is to me, I guess, I don't want to say outdated, but it potentially is. Yeah, not current. It's not current. So at that point, you know, I was not on committee, not trying to do away with what we're talking about here, but I was on committee many years ago, and this is a continuing issue with the Duval, even though they're prior owners, okay? With that property, I shouldn't say with the Duval. I also want to know who does what. Who, like, we talked, one of the people that testified said something about, and I think Dottie, Ms. McCross came up and talked about that with regard to the ABC goes in there. They're the ones enforcing the alcohol law. We just enforce
what do we enforce? I mean, we can't go in there and shut them down because somebody says that the over-the-counter liquor sales are done the wrong way.
Well,
that's
so,
not us.
So to address that question, Mr. Newman, there is sort of a dual enforcement here. So the ABC is going in there. I'm honestly not familiar with their sort of review and compliance testing and policing procedures, but they have a process, and that clearly that process has been initiated here in the past and has led to a resolution of the issue per the ABC documents that we have reviewed. But that doesn't change the fact that the township, as the issuing authority, does have in fact the power and authority to review. And again, we don't have our own township police, but we do in fact have a very strong and active police force in terms of the state police. And they are our local police, and so they are our local enforcement agents.
Even if we had a local police department, I don't think they would be going in there and saying, "Hey, you're not selling that alcohol right." That has to be
They
full
do have
display.
that authority. I'm not necessarily the best person to speak to the ins and outs of what the police can and can't do, but yes, broadly speaking, the police do have the authority to enforce these types of regulations for the licensed, for any alcoholic beverage license holder.
Dan, let me just, we had some conversations tonight about conditions. And can you explain to the committee that they have the ability to impose certain conditions relative to the license, including license areas, security, hours, littering, noise. So all those egress, ingress, all those things can be incorporated in the granting of the license.
So the process being, I'll just lay out the options. You could renew the license without conditions. You could renew the license with these special conditions, or you could refuse to renew the license. And as in terms of renewing with special conditions, there's certain things you don't have to address. And so, and as Mr. Wendt had mentioned, I did speak with the chief counsel of the Division of Alcoholic Beverage Control regarding these issues, and she made a statement that I readily agree with. We don't need a special condition that you have to comply with licensed areas. That's the law. Every license holder has to do that. We don't need a special condition that you have to apply with the township ordinance that regulates license hours. Again, that's the law. Everyone has to do that. So there are certain things that are already addressed in terms of this is what is legal, this is what is not legal. If any license holder is engaging in activity that is not legal, they're subject to an enforcement action. And they're subject to investigation and charges and that quasi-judicial hearing. However, to the extent that, again, based on tonight's comments, which we're taking them for what they are, the committee may feel that there is some basis for imposing requirements that are more strict than what the law already requires, or perhaps that clarifies how those laws apply to this particular licensed premises.
Can we refer back to the planning board resolution?
So again, you can. I would argue the planning board resolution that was subject to many conditions is already the law as applicable to the license holder, but there's no harm in repeating and essentially incorporating those conditions as a condition of the license renewal because, and I believe Ms. McCross already acknowledged this, those conditions are already binding on the licensee.
I have a question for, I believe for Dottie McCross.
Sure.
Real quick. You said there is security on the premises.
Yes, sir.
Do you, where it abuts the bridge property on the beach, that seems to be the biggest problem I've heard about. Is there security kept there during operation hours?
Yes, sir. And there's signage there as well.
So there is security there when you're open, or when the
Yes.
beach bar is open?
That's what I'm told. I'm told that they have 8 security guards on the property, and that is one of the areas that is manned.
Would your client be amenable to making that part of the condition if the property, the beach bar is open, there's security at that entrance?
Yes. They're already doing it.
Okay.
There are people there, but they're not stopping folks from walking out. They actually converse with them and
Well-
allow them to walk out.
That would be part of the security, that's it, part of his reason to have it. So your client would be agreeable with that?
Yes, Mayor.
Okay.
So the committee can discuss at whatever length you feel is appropriate. The state regulation does essentially state that if you are either denying the application for renewal or denying an objection, you should state reasons therefore. It seems to me like the committee is considering an approach that perhaps would satisfy all parties, or at least address the concerns expressed by all parties and the interests, in which case I'm not sure that anyone's application is being flatly denied.
I tend to agree with that. So what do we need to do?
So when you're ready, essentially on our agenda, we've had the public hearing, so the next question is we have a resolution to be acted on.
I guess we
separately.
have to officially close the public portion.
I would recommend that, yes.
May I respond to the things
Yes.
that are not accurate? She indicated that the Jobel is cooperating with the provisions of the resolution from the planning board, and that they're in full compliance. However, on May 5th, an outdoor DJ played music till after 10 p.m. and it was above the level decibel reading of 65 for daytime and above 50 for evening. On June 12th, music continued to be played outdoors at a special event until 9:43 p.m. And on June 18th, there was live outdoor music that continued until 10:20 p.m. So they are not complying with the requirements of the resolution at all. She also questioned the statement about increased EMS calls. I put that in my letter because there was a newspaper article where a member of the Upper Township Committee affirmed that there were increased EMS calls to Strathmere. I believe that was during COVID and year after.
Yes, it was, and that was me. We talked about the increased calls, and that was the question in the state park, because that place had turned into the Wild West.
Ms. McPherson also said that they were fined for violations during the pandemic lockdown in September. However, customers were shoulder to shoulder all summer. They just happened to be inspected at the end of the summer, but that behavior continued the entire summer. And Ms. McPherson also said that when her clients are notified of a violation, that they stop doing it. As a licensee, you should be well aware of what your requirements are under the law. And an excuse of, oh, I didn't know, ignorance is not acceptable. It's in a very important license, and there's very specific requirements that I stated that I read and are easily understood. So I'm not sure, well, they could say, oh, sorry, we get a pass, we didn't know. And that was said like 4 times tonight. So as the issuing authority of the license, you have the ability to enforce and impose restrictions. You have the ability to go in and look at the receipts of sales. The ABC didn't do it because you had jurisdiction. It was a local law. It wasn't a state law. So this committee has the ability to conduct an investigation and to impose violations, and also to...
I don't know if we have the right to go in there and look at their books, and that's...
You do have the right to investigate. I would need to review the scope of what that investigation would entail. I can't speak to that at this exact moment.
Thank you for your time.
Right.
I appreciate it.
We could put a condition on it, though, that there's no outdoor music permitted.
I don't know, the planning board, can we override the planning board on?
So if it's a land use question, it has to be addressed by the planning board. I'm not sure that is strictly a land use question, even though it was made a condition of approval of a land use application. But the question is, if you feel that it pertains to the use of the liquor license, I believe that's what the committee has to review tonight.
Well,
So-
I mean, where do we start and stop with that?
So the question being,
Well, I'm gonna close the public portion again, just,
again, I think what the committee should focus on is, like I said at the beginning, this is not about planning board issues, this is not about DEP issues, this is about renewal of a liquor license. And so the committee should consider factors that relate to the liquor license on the premises and the licensee's compliance with applicable law.
I think we'd have a hard time with the no outdoor music.
Well, public,
I mean, unless we're gonna make it, our whole municipality wide. I mean, where do we start and stop?
And truthfully, it sounds like listening to all parties, there was some extensive testimony that went on when this was in front of the planning board. So for us to swoop in the final hour and say, well, we're just gonna ignore all the testimony that went on and make a change here, I don't think that's really fair to anyone that was involved. I think that, Deputy Mayor Newman made some good points that some of these complaints seem like they're old complaints. It sounds to me like we do have the adequate provisions in place. We just need to ensure that they're being enforced and followed.
We've got some testimony here within the past 30 days that we've had some complaints and violations of the music, for one thing.
But this is, well, that's from, okay, you looked at this. I mean, this is county health department was out and did, sound levels, that's an investigation.
Right.
To me, I mean, either way, I mean, obviously, we all want them to be open and
Absolutely.
prosper, but
But
follow
we also
the
don't
rules.
want a public
Just
nuisance.
follow the rules, yeah.
Right.
Why can't just everyone just follow the rules?
Well, I do think the applicant has agreed to, or the licensee has agreed to staff and man the one entranceway that seems to be the problem. And that will help.
I would think that like the attorney says, they have to follow the law, as set forth in state law, 365 days a year. If they're violating that or our township ordinance, that should be brought forward and they should be fined.
Well, honestly,
did somebody go out and write a ticket or make the complaint to the state police?
Well, when the
and now we
complaint-
have the zoning officers out there.
Well, when the complaints came into the municipal clerk, or up here our office, our municipal clerk did her job. She notified the state police and the division of ABC.
Right.
Because that's what's supposed to happen. So our municipal clerk did her job, and
certainly not saying that she
consequently,
has.
I mean, it might have triggered an ABC investigation. I don't know. I don't know what they're doing.
Well, I would just like to say that I do agree with my colleagues here, and it seems like a lot of these complaints are from a couple years past. There's already oversight on the Deauville with New Jersey State Police, the DEP, and the ABC. Our planning board seems to have addressed some of these with restrictions. I'm for renewing this with the added condition that they provide the security for that area by the Bridge Commission.
And I concur, and I would just like to say that we add that potentially we do some sort of, we send our zoning officer out there one night and do a couple spot checks to see if they're complying with the 10 o'clock done.
That's
So
already
they say
there.
they're only gonna have music on 8, they're committed to only 6 nights in the summer. Well, if they're speaking the truth, which I don't have any reason to doubt anybody, that they have already violated that. So let's go ahead and if that happens, get a complaint out here or send somebody out there on a middle of the week and let's find out.
Just
run it up the flagpole.
Question from Committee of Pancos. A planning board resolution that was mentioned, 6221. Did you,
That would be the planning board, guys.
right, that's the planning board that had the conditions?
I believe it was.
Is that what it
It is
was?
included in our packet.
And did you say, Dan, that could be somehow, it's the same thing that the Committee
So
of Pancos said,
essentially,
it could be
you could
heightened?
make, yes, so the committee could choose to make compliance with the conditions stated in Resolution PB 06-2021 a condition. Again, I would technically take the position that it's unnecessary as those conditions are already binding upon the licensee, but there's no harm in making that a condition of renewal of the license as well. And if there's any question in the committee's mind that any of these conditions are not being complied with, that would certainly be an option.
So if I'm correct or I'm wrong, this is the first license renewal
applications we've had from the Newville since that planning board meeting, okay?
That is correct.
So that should be, you know, part of, I think that it bears mentioning in the renewal that planning board resolution be noted.
Yeah, and the resolution was adopted by the planning board on December 16, 2021. So yes, this is the first time that the committee has had the chance to.
And this is after multiple hours of testimony. Thank God I wasn't on the planning board for that one.
The resolution itself is 41 pages long, which is fairly lengthy.
I agree.
So, can we make a motion to approve that with the planning board conditions as discussed?
That certainly the committee may make that motion and propose whatever special conditions the committee feels are appropriate.
I'll go ahead and make the motion that we approve approve the renewal of the license. That we add the condition or note on the license that this planning board resolution that's on there. And the security guard that will be at the Bridge Commission end to keep beverages from departing the property.
Understood. So he's, Mr. Newman has made the motion.
Second.
Barbara, please call the roll.
And Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Ms. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Newman?
Yes.
Mr. Pankos?
Yes.
Mayor Corson?
Yes.
Motion is carried to renew the liquor license with the conditions as stated.
Alrighty.
Oh, it's Kim. Kim, you're in charge again.
Oh, this is.
Oh,
Item number 20, under ordinances. Ready to move on?
for the next ordinance, ordinance number 20, I think it's gonna be a couple minutes. So I'm actually gonna excuse myself from the table. I have a conflict, and I believe Mr. Newman does
Oh,
for the
yeah,
next
I get to
one.
go.
So, we're gonna step down here.
And for the record, Ms. Hayes, I believe is the chair of the committee while our others are away.
Yes, and our skeleton crew here.
Just so that, are we taking a break or are we?
No, I was just
No.
giving them a second to clear out. So, Dan, I know we've had several amendments to this ordinance and we've postponed it multiple times. So if you could 't just give us a little overview of what we're actually looking
I
at
would
right
be
now.
happy to do that, Ms. Hayes. Once I get my right folder here. So I'll do my best to summarize the campground ordinance briefly. Significant parts of the ordinance.
Can I have everybody's attention, please?
So significant parts of the ordinance directly restate the existing ordinance. So just to be clear, there is an existing campground ordinance under section 12 of the township.
Excuse me, we're still in session here. I need everyone to be quiet in the room. Thank you.
So under section 12 of the township code, there is a campgrounds ordinance. As I mentioned at our last meeting, one of the significant changes is that it updates a reference to essentially I'll call it loosely the health code applicable to campgrounds. Our existing ordinance is based on a 1964 set of suggested health code regulations. The new ordinance essentially incorporates current state regulations that are applicable. There is, again, several sections that are not changing. There is a new prohibition on camping cabins. Camping cabin is defined as any permanent structure or modification of a recreational vehicle that has been done by permit from the construction office, such as replacement of roof and or interior walls of the recreational vehicle. So
Dan, if I could just comment, I don't think that's a new prohibition. I think
I'm sorry, maybe there's more clearly stating.
It states that distinction.
So I apologize. This is new language that is being added to the ordinance. Whether it's a new prohibition, I would be inclined to agree
I think
with
it's
Mr.
clarifying.
Dietrich that it is a clarification. But essentially, camping cabins are not a permitted item in the township. So with that said, the revision to the campground ordinance would make that explicitly clear. It would also, this section would address the fact that unfortunately, under a prior construction official, there were some construction permits that were issued illegally, albeit inadvertently, to some of the owners of recreational vehicles who wanted to make construction modifications. And essentially the township is trying to preserve those permits that were given improperly, but without creating a detriment to those who acted upon those permits in good faith, while also recognizing that they were illegal, that same types of activities that were previously illegal but were permitted to occur anyway remain illegal today. So then there's some additional language regarding setbacks and roads and square footage that is not changing. It's exactly identical to the language in the current ordinance. As far as the next substantive change is the fee schedule. We did discuss that 2 weeks ago. Essentially, the fee schedule has not been updated since about 1978, I believe, and or 1974 perhaps. And so there is a new fee schedule that is proposed to be adopted, where it would be $250 per campground plus a fee per site, regardless of the type of the site or the nature of the site. And the way the ordinance currently reads is that that per site fee would be set by resolution of the township committee each year. In the absence of a resolution, the default fee per site would be $6. So no change to the period of operation of campgrounds, no change to the storage of recreational vehicles on site in the off season when they're not permitted to be occupied, no change of the requirement to disconnect the recreational vehicles from utilities during the off-season, or to remove temporary facilities such as screen porches, patios, and similar structures during the off-season. All of those requirements are exactly restating languages in the current campground ordinance. We still need County Board of Health approval. That's not changing. In terms of inspection, there's one change, which is in addition to the Township Health Officer, Board of Health, and Township Committee, the Township Engineer, Zoning Officer, and Code Enforcement Officer may also inspect the campgrounds at any time. The penalty is being revised to have a violation would be $1,000 per occurrence, and each separate 24-hour period would constitute and be deemed a separate violation. So those are the changes to the campground ordinance. We're also changing section 19 of the code, which would basically address, it's only adding one new section, which I'll summarize. Essentially says there may be routine and customary modifications to existing individual campsites that are not going to be considered an expansion of use or structure, even though the campgrounds are existing permitted non-conforming uses. So notwithstanding any other provision of this section, site plan review shall not be required for any change to a campsite with an existing previously approved campground, as long as it meets certain requirements. The recreational vehicle cannot exceed 400 square feet in size. Additions must be limited to a deck. Cannot exceed 400 square feet in terms of the deck space. 200 square feet in terms of the deck space, and various other requirements that are stated in the amended ordinance, basically applicable to here's what is permitted, notwithstanding the fact that essentially any other change to the campground would not be permitted. So that is, those are the changes to Chapter 19 of the code. Chapter 20 of the code, we are adding essentially an entire new section to address this concept of primitive campgrounds, which are campgrounds that are intended and used for transient overnight stays in tents, campers, or recreational vehicles with no utility hookups on site and passive accessory uses only. I don't believe any of the existing campgrounds would meet that definition.
And if I could just jump in, that section is already there. And that is, and what really was changed was we had a section for, I'll say, campgrounds with utility connections, and we had essentially removed that out of the conditional use section because it should have been removed years ago, because there are no permitted locations within the township that was a conditional use for. So, there was no reason to have that conditional use standard in our ordinance because it wasn't permitted anywhere. So it's really, that section didn't change for the primitive campgrounds, and primitive campgrounds, I agree, there are none, and they're only permitted in the conservation zone. So.
And a primitive campground is fairly primitive. It is, as I would consider, sort of akin to a state park where there are very limited utilities available, and it's really a quote-unquote more natural type of camping. Not to be confused with the modern trend of glamping, where we have air conditioning that we take with us when we go camping. Guilty, but so with that said, I agree with Mr. Dietrich. We are essentially cleaning up this section to maintain these regulations for here's what a primitive campground is. We're not really changing the requirements for primitive campgrounds, but we are acknowledging that there is no such thing as a permitted or even conditional use of a non-primitive campground in the township. So essentially those are the changes. I'm paraphrasing in some cases. We removed the requirement for public telephones. Again, that's sort of at this point an anachronism. So in many ways we are simply updating our ordinance to be up with the times.
Okay, thank you. So do either of my colleagues have a comment for this?
Only question I have, when we talked about the structures early on, we refer to them as roof overs? Is that the?
So yes, the roof overs, and under the ordinance as proposed, essentially any recreational vehicle that has been modified via a roof over would now be defined as a camping cab.
And we're not going back on the permits that were already?
We're not going back on the permits that were already issued. The township is acknowledging that even though they were erroneously issued, they were relied upon in good faith. They were issued by the proper person, even without the proper authority. But we're simply acknowledging we're not going to keep issuing illegal construction permits.
I understand. Thank you. That's all.
Okay, so with that said, I'm going to open up the public comment portion. I think there are a few people that are here to comment on this.
Good evening again, members of the committee. My name is Ray Wendt, partner with the law firm of Nemad Davison Goldstein. I'm here on behalf of the Bayberry Cove Condominium Association as well as the Oak Ridge Condominium Association. Bayberry, or Oak Ridge, being located at block 62, lot 600, and the Bayberry property being at block 599, lot 16. As you know, prior counsel Dan Young and current counsel Dan Reeves and I have negotiated a number of modifications since the inception of this proposed ordinance. The overriding, there were two issues here, one which I'm not here to press, others may be, and that is can you keep giving these permits out so I can get my roof over? I'm not here for that. Other people might be, but I distinctly understand the nature of what happened and that I can't ask you to keep giving out illegal permits. What I am here to do, though, is to protect those that did receive the permits in good faith from your prior code officer and to negotiate what I think is the fairest of options along a lot of these, what I call zoning and land use issues that were proposed. So just by way of background, I want to confirm that the folks that have the roof over by way of permit before you realize what was happening, they're protected. They don't have to go get variances if they need to repair what they already have. The setback issues that we negotiated, just by way of example, but were important points were, for instance, a 200-foot maximum on decks. Originally said deck, and we made sure that you recognize that if someone has two decks that add up to less than 200 square feet, that's okay too. Another important issue was the 15-foot setback, and there's a lot of confusion right now about the setback issue. My understanding is that currently the setback requirement under existing ordinance is 15 feet between structures. So if I have my RV here, the next RV over has to be at least 15 feet away. Under the current ordinance, as proposed, it would be just 10 feet now. So that's an improvement and a relaxation of what is a more onerous 15 feet. Now it just has to be 10 feet apart. However, there's mention of a 15-foot setback around the campground property. That was confusing. I marked as exhibits Oak Ridge 1 and Bayberry 1 a copy of the tax maps and the maps that we have for the actual property, and I highlighted what is meant by this 15-foot setback surrounding the entire campground property, just so there's no mistake as to what we mean by that 15-foot setback. So I have copies enough for everyone here. Okay, Bayberry 1 and Oak Ridge 1. So, again, with that, we negotiated as much as possible to get the most favorable conditions possible for both condominium associations. One of the biggest, I think, concessions or agreements that was made was that originally the condominium associations were going to be levied quite heavily in terms of fees, to the tune of a heavy four-figure fee every year, with $250 plus $100 for every roof over. And instead, now there's going to be a township-wide fee of $250 per campground, and then $6 per campsite, which we feel is a lot more reasonable. We appreciate that concession from the city. There is one remaining point, though, that I hate to beat a dead horse, but I'm going to keep beating it. Is the 6-foot maximum on the opening between the addition and the RV. There are manufacturers that produce, as a matter of course, openings that are wider than 6 feet. We are respectfully requesting that the ordinance be modified to allow an owner who purchases an addition that has an opening wider than 6 feet to also open the RV to match that opening, whether it be 7 feet or 8 feet. I say that also not just because it just makes sense from an aesthetic point of view, because practically speaking, what's the difference between 1 feet or 2 feet or 3 feet? But also from the reality we face in terms of what people can get their hands on in any way, shape, or form in the way of goods and services right now. And right now, I'm being told some of these manufacturers are the ones that make the openings that are wider than 6 feet. Those are what's available right now. And you have to get what you can get your hands on right now because of what the supply and demand chain is looking like. So again, we don't see, we recognize all of the purposes behind the ordinance. We know about the school issue and the enrollment issue and people living year round, and we have all the restrictions in place ourselves because we don't want that either. But this interior restriction is one we got to keep pursuing. And we are respectfully requesting that the interior opening be, while the 6-foot limitation, we understand it, if the opening the manufacturer creates is 6 feet, then you're stuck with 6 feet, that the opening be in tune with what the manufacturer does. So that we would ask for that to be modified. And we know we've been denied. That's the last one that I've kept harping on, and I'm going to keep doing it tonight. But with that, I think that's all I have. You may hear some additional comments that are similar to mine from association members. Again, I represent the association the associations at the direction of the boards. There are individual owners here that might not agree with anything that I'm saying right now, and that's fine. I get that. That's the nature of representing an association. But that's what I have on behalf of the associations. If there are any questions from the committee, I'll do my best to entertain them. Both presidents from the boards are here if you have any questions. Thank you.
Mr. Nguyen, I would like to just say thank you for your back and forth with our planning board attorney and our previous solicitor and our current solicitor. I know it's been a long process for everybody involved, and we appreciate the collaboration.
Thank you. I think we have one coming up.
Thank you for this opportunity. My name is David Kritzik. I'm from Barnegat, New Jersey. I'm president of the Manufactured Homeowners Association of New Jersey. I've been asked here to represent many of the residents in Pine Hill regarding
They're not a campground.
Yeah, so Pine Hill is not subject to this ordinance. This is for our condo campgrounds.
all right.
So I'm gonna have to ask you to take a seat and we'll call you back up when we get to the public comment, sorry.
First of all, thank you all for your effort. I really appreciate it. I do have a question in general.
If you could just state your name and address.
Oh, yes,
for the record.
Deborah Perlow. I'm a resident of Bayberry Cove. And I'm there pretty much 7 months out of the year. And I guess my question to you is, in general, it's not clear to me why there would be an issue with roof overs. Is this a fire issue? Could someone explain that?
I think we should defer to the township engineer on that question.
Well, I mean, as we've discussed before, it's become, you know, a consideration of the township committee and the planning board that seasonal structures, camping cabins, are not what they consider the camping development within Upper Township. It's for recreational vehicles, not for permanent structures. Permanent structures meant for in a single-family home subdivision throughout the rest of our township, where that's where somebody lives year-round. Within a campground, that's seasonal living, not permanent living, and therefore they feel that it should be restricted to a recreational vehicle. And once you start creating a roof over, that makes it a permanent structure, camping cabin, and that's what they don't want.
But these are sitting there all the time. They don't move. So
Correct.
it's unclear to me.
And that is part of the problem. Again, from a legality standpoint, one of the issues is the more habitable these units become, the greater the risk of someone illegally, improperly attempting to use one of these recreational vehicles as a year-round residence. So from a health code standpoint, they're not designed for that. And from an education and school funding standpoint, it creates a significant funding liability for the township if there are individuals who begin residing in campgrounds and sending their children to the schools, and it creates a significant cost to the township. It's by no means offset by the revenues generated by those properties. And so that is always a factor in any sort of plan in terms of development that the township develops for township-wide master plan are those issues. And so, again, the issue being, if it's purely a recreational vehicle, practically speaking, it's not necessarily conducive to year-round living. If the more add-ons there are to that recreational vehicle, the more it becomes like something else, more like a residence that can be inhabited year-round, creating the risk.
And because we need to because we have several types of campgrounds, we have really 3 different types of campgrounds within the township, we need to treat them all equally, just like your attorney asked us to treat from a fee structure to treat them equally. You know, Bayberry has different rules than another campground has. So, you know, to treat everybody equally, we need to regulate them equally.
So even though the campground itself is not open more than 7 months out of the year, so people could not send their children to school
But there
from
are
there.
places, if you come in September and register your child for school at that location, at that address, and they start going to school, they can continue to stay at school.
No, I didn't even realize that was possible.
That's
Okay.
possible. And that has happened in other jurisdictions, and, you know, it's just something that we don't want to take that risk.
Okay, thank you.
Dan, these have been prohibited since 1964.
Correct.
And I think it's important to reiterate how we got to this point, that the current roof overs that exist are in violation of our existing zoning laws. And we recognize that that we were at fault, you know, the previous construction official that issued those permits was at fault, and we're, came to an agreement to allow those to stay, but we can't allow it to move forward. We can't allow it to continue because it still is a violation. Okay? Is there anyone else who'd like to speak?
I'm also David Popek. I'm also a resident of Bayberry for the last 11 years. I guess I understand the rationale for no roof overs. I really wish, I had the unfortunate experience of being at Bayberry 2 summers ago when a tornado ran through, and our street happens to border the Coca-Cola bottling plant.
Oh, sorry.
And when you hear your phone go crazy, seek shelter, and there's nowhere to seek shelter in these units, right? And there's no basement to go to. You know how these are constructed? The interior walls are paper thin. You could probably punch your fist through the outside wall. The only thing that makes them a little bit more structurally sound is a roof over. I have lots of pine trees around my house, mature pine trees. And I'm also, unfortunately, because of where the unit's situated, it's the most windiest part of the park. I'm at the highest elevation. Roof overs are done primarily because the flat roofs leak after about 15 years because you can only use roll roofing. When you put up a pitch on a roof, then you can use traditional asphalt shingles and you get about 30 years out of it. So it's not always done just for aesthetic reasons. I saw a couple years ago a tree landed on one of these units that didn't have a roof over, and it got crushed like a tin can. So I guess I understand the rationale why you want to keep these rustic, and that's a quaint notion, but I just hope nobody gets hurt in the future because you stop the practice. Because like I said, if you lived through, like I did, I happened to be there when a tornado went through. It's kind of a scary experience to begin with. And to be honest with you, I'm kind of, although the park really strongly discourages, based on this decision, I'm probably going to take all my pine trees out and just kind of, I know that they want to keep the park kind of rustic, and that's nice, but it's just too scary right where my property's situated to leave it as is. And we bought the property 11 years ago, so I'm on fixed time with the current, almost flat roof. I'm going to have it redone.
And you'll see most of the other campgrounds in the township have requirements that they only allow units to be of a certain age. So, they may not allow a camper that's older than 15 years old in their campground at all. And they say, hey, it gets at that point, it's time to get a new camper. That's rules in many of the campgrounds in the township.
Well, I guess I don't understand that because everything I've read on the internet and talked to people about it, it's really how well you maintain your mobile home. It's not like it doesn't.
These aren't mobile homes, these are recreational vehicles.
That's slicing the words, but still.
But that's why we're here. These are campgrounds. These are for recreational vehicles. We have a mobile home park which was directly across the street from you, Pine Hill, and they live in mobile homes. They are year-round residents, and they were affected by the tornado, and they had to live through it also. So, if you're looking for a year-round living, we have those types of options in the township. They're in our mobile home parks, they're in our single-family homes, but the campgrounds are for seasonal living.
That's fine, but the storm happened in the middle of the summer. It did not happen in the 5 months of the winter. With the climate changes, these storms are becoming more prevalent and more dramatic. So all I'm saying is that there's a rationale for why people do roof overs. It's not always because they're trying to make it a permanent residence. There is a structural issue at play.
Well, there are many campgrounds throughout the township that have recreational vehicles that don't include roof overs, which I think, to Paul's point, that, not just the mobile home parks, but, I think we have, 11, 12 campgrounds throughout the township, that, there's only, I think, 2 that have had this roof over issue. The rest of them have recreational vehicles that don't have roof overs, and they are subject to those things. So I think that conversation is really something that you need to go to your association and talk to them about coming up with a safety plan for when tornadoes hit, because, Not everyone there is going to have a roof over, just like the other campgrounds, and that's something that should be addressed. It absolutely is a safety concern. And, truthfully, you said yourself, a tree fell on one of these that had a roof over and it crushed it like a tin can. That could happen in a tornado, and the roof over isn't going to protect you from that.
No,
so I think
not
it's important to come up with a plan to address that, and I think that's a question for your association.
It's not that a roof over is a complete solution, but it is a stronger structural unit
Yes.
than just, having an attached sunroom. The only other thing I'd like to add is I have an existing unit that was approved when the sunroom was redone 11 years ago. They did put in an opening that was wider than 6 foot. So I'm also out of compliance with that.
But it's already there, it's already existing?
Yes.
Yeah, no, you're not out of compliance if it's already existing.
But I have no way to prove that. I have no way to prove when it was done. It was done when I bought the property 11 years ago. So I don't know how I can prove that that was part of the property when I bought it.
Well, it should have had the proper permits at that time when it was done,
We're
correct?
looking at for new ones. We're not gonna come into inspect your park model and say you're out of compliance, you have to remove it. That's not what we're doing.
At this time, but my
No,
understanding...
There's nothing in this program that's what we do. When we do our inspections, and I gave an inspection procedure, we developed a written inspection procedure just for, as Mr. Wendt requested, to outline to you, so you have that comfort to know. We come in to look, did you add more sites to your campground? Did you disturb the buffers? So that's one thing you have to be careful of. Don't disturb any and remove any trees between your trailer and the perimeter out property line, because that's a mandatory buffer that you have to maintain. Did you disturb that? Are there additional structures that were built without site plan approval? Those are the things we're looking at. At the end of the season, bless you, we're gonna come in and say, hey, have the utilities been turned off? Is everybody left for the season? That's our inspection procedures. Nowhere, or have we ever gone into a unit and said, oh, you've got something inside there that's non-compliant, you have to remove it. That's not what we do. And we've never done it.
My fear is, fast forward 10 years, I go to sell the property. I don't know what,
We don't know when you sell it. Well, actually, Bayberry, we do know when you sell it. Actually, we wouldn't, because we have to do a flood hazard compliance inspection, but we're not coming inside your unit.
Based on what you do today, my fear is still what happens 10 years from now.
There's nothing in the ordinance that would prescribe a reason to come into your unit, except at the end of the season to verify the utilities have been turned off.
So, if I understand you right, then not that I would do this, but then anybody that currently has a unit could go themselves and make it wider than 6 foot, and you'd be none the wiser.
Well, you'd need a construction permit to do that, so you couldn't get a construction permit to do that today.
They could do it without getting a permit.
Well, now it's an illegal.
You can do anything you want until you get caught.
But then,
At the end of the day, I mean,
then I'm back full circle though. So how
full circle.
I don't know what.
We're kind of getting out of the
Right,
scope of
we're
the
getting-
whole
looking
ordinance here.
for.
Right,
No one's
we're-
gonna give you a waiver for what
Right.
you did 10 years ago, what the property has done.
Right.
So, just to encapsulate, because you passed the 5 minutes, that this particular ordinance addresses the scope creep, memorializes what's there. Like the engineer had said, no one's coming in to do post inspections. The vehicles or the campsites or the campground that you have there are for temporary structures. That's what it's for. Just like the engineer said, if you want a full-time, year-round mobile home, move across the street. That's not what these campgrounds are for, right? It's temporary, temporary, temporary. Keep it safe, keep your family healthy, enjoy what you have, but this particular ordinance just memorializes what was there and allows everyone to move forward. So if you do sell your property and you have to go through a zoning inspection, I'm sure it'll be detailed on the zoning inspection. But as far as what you did 10 years ago or what you have today, you're fine.
I agree with Mr. Demars on all points. I will add for the committee's benefit as you consider the ordinance that essentially there are still some other processes in place here outside of the scope of the ordinance under the municipal land use law, which is state law. there is a process to obtain a zoning compliance certificate from the zoning board. Essentially, you apply as a property owner to the zoning board for a certificate stating that the property that you own is currently in compliance. That is an option, and it's available to essentially all property owners. Another option is always to seek a variance from the zoning board. So, as with our single-family homes and other developments within the township, so with campgrounds, there are permitted uses, there are prohibited uses, there are conditional uses. If you have a prohibited use, but you're seeking to do something that is not permitted, you go to the zoning board of adjustment, you ask for a variance, and you have to make your case. You have to show why you should be entitled to that, even though it's not provided for. But there is a relief available there if you can make that showing. I will also add, for anyone who had obtained an illegal construction permit, that is a public record. To the extent that you need a copy of that record, the property owner can apply to the township to obtain a copy of the construction permit. They're kept indefinitely, and the construction permit itself would be significant evidence to support any challenge that there was any illegality. To the extent that there were any property owners that engaged in construction without obtaining even one of these illegally obtained construction permits, they could have some enforcement issues, and that's something that remains to be seen. But that's, I understand from working with the committee, that's not what the committee is seeking to go after. The committee is seeking to legalize what is there today and to prevent any illegal construction in the future.
So that gives you several ways to sort of abate your fears, that you can get, certificate of compliance, you can apply for a variance. I would suggest that you reach out to our zoning office if and when this does pass, to get some guidance on how you could protect yourself to ensure that you're in compliance, and moving forward, if you sell your property in 10 years, you'll be okay.
Okay, thanks.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak on this ordinance?
Hi, Carol Dever. I'm at Oak Ridge Condo Association. I would like to reiterate the fact that we ask you to consider more than a 6-foot opening. We do have several people that are trying to bring in some units that they have purchased or are looking at that are beyond the 6 feet opening. And we ask that you please change that in the ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else?
Hello, George Doherty, Bayberry Cove. I spoke a little bit prior, I'll be brief. One thing that you have to take into consideration is that of the 11 campgrounds, we're 2 where we own. We invest a lot into our personal residence. Many structures in Bayberry have been owned since inception. There's 306 units. We're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars. Ones on the lake are beautiful. Very seldom do they go up for sale. So to group us with all the other campgrounds, it's difficult because they are for profit. They're businesses. We own, we maintain our land. Bayberry, 80% of the park is in a flood zone. You have to elevate. If you went in there and looked at some of those units, you'd say, Jesus, this looks like it's an Ocean City. Underneath it's all pylons. The structure there, 800 square feet is 800 square feet. If someone decides to break the law, they're going to do it whether it's a camper or a stick-built or whatever. Bayberry's evolved over the last 37 years. You're saying illegal permits issued in the past. Well, look at what it has evolved into. Seasonal structures. That's really what it is. I mean, if you want to call it what it is, that's what it is. Now, we're regressing, and you're limiting the opening size, putting more restrictions. No one wants to stay in there year-round. No one wants to impact the schools. It's going to affect our resale value. Newer units get deteriorated. Some of them are up for sale for, a fraction of what would go for market, price. Someone buys that, they want to modify it. These places, I don't know how many of you have actually been in Bayberry. It's beautiful. There's more restrictions there than anywhere else. And we're an excellent neighbor, we've been an excellent neighbor, but to take us and put us in the same category as the remaining campgrounds, it's just not fair. Because really, that's not what we are. And the revenue from the tax base is substantially greater from owning our own properties. We would appreciate you to allow us to continue to what we were able to do. No one got hurt, no one's in any schools. We comply with all the regulations, but to impose these, it's going to impact us, community-wise. And that's just the way it is. And I understand you have a tough decision. You have to rule on us collectively together, but we all know here that we're really not. I mean, one last year in Bayberry sold for $275,000. Who's going to invest in a seasonal structure that they can replace every 10 years? Thank you.
Anyone else would like to comment on this ordinance?
Tom Sawyer, Bayberry Cove. As mentioned in the last meeting, and been in several meetings I know took place, I was here, only one, it was the last one, so I apologize for not having all the facts put together. Conversations you just heard, how true they are. We're a unique campground. This is Bayberry Cove I'm talking about. When the storm hit us and the hurricane came, we were asked, excuse me, to do something. People could not respond to fix their place up within a period of time. It had to go up. We didn't ask for it. You didn't ask for it. FEMA made us do it, if I am correct. So the uprights are things that were made from outside laws or outside situations in the township. So we have to abide by them. And if you think about putting a trailer up 10 feet in the air and a good gust of wind, maybe the structure needs to be a little bit stronger. I can't answer that. I'm not a contractor. But what I will say, 10, 15 years ago, I've been here since '99, and one day there came an issue about a telephone tower in our area, at which time everybody got upset because we thought our value, and again, I will state followed, we own our properties, unlike a lot of other campgrounds or camp people, which makes us a little different. Anyway, the story was interesting. Our tax base prior to that time was a very minimal tax base. 2 weeks after, when everybody came to the township, flooded the place here, they had a postponed meeting, come back the following week. We won. In other words, the tower did not go up, but we saved our values to our houses. But it's interesting in that the times I've been here, I saw a township's car come through my place maybe twice in the 8 years prior to that I lived there. But the week after all this happened, for the following 2 months, every day there was an inspection car coming through. I don't know if they finally saw the value of a beautiful place we have. And that's what it is, it's a beautiful place. It's a home for people to enjoy their summertime. We're not asking anything more than that. But the taxes is something that maybe somebody would look into too. See where they've changed over the years. Just something to take in consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to address this ordinance?
I'd like to make one comment. My name is Andy Minarsik, and I'm from Oak Ridge. I've been involved with this ordinance issue since probably it bubbled up in December of 18, I want to say. And from the very start, I thought that Oak Ridge and Bayberry are unique in the campsite world since we're fractional owners, and that we should have a little bit more freedom, I guess you would say, in developing our seasonal structures. Oak Ridge, for one, does not have the infrastructure to support year-round living. Our water lines have to be blown out each year, each fall. We have to make sure all our units are winterized, electric shut down. So the idea that we would want to stay there and go to the schools, I think it's unfounded. I just think it's a fear on the township's part. So I I think it's kind of late in the game, but we probably should have been carved away from this campground idea and put us into a category of seasonal structures. Our master deed does not allow us to stay open beyond November. We're only allowed to be open from April to the end of October. So that's basically how I see it. You know, that we're sort of unique and we're being lumped in with the other group. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Okay, I'm hearing no other comments, so we'll close the public hearing portion of this. Are there any comments, questions from my colleagues? Dan, I have one question. If we were to entertain changing the opening, what would we have to do? Could we make a motion with that
So that would
amendment?
entail another amendment similar to what we did at last meeting, where we did make some changes to the language of the proposed ordinance. The committee had made a motion to amend the proposed ordinance, and in the event that the committee were to make an amendment tonight, then we would again go through that process where we would have essentially the amendment could be adopted tonight. The ordinance as amended could not be adopted tonight, so we would need to republish again. We could come back at a subsequent meeting where we would again consider the now adopted amended ordinance, the ordinance with the adopted amendments incorporated, and you would again have a public hearing and final adoption of that ordinance as amended.
And that though may also require you to go back to the planning board,
Right.
because that's a real technical change to what the planning board had.
Can you explain what's the reason why you wouldn't want to?
Well, I mean, the planning board, discussed it, and a lot of it was, what was the standard opening, I mean, that's like a standard slider door opener, so that's what's there.
Right.
It's you have to go make an exception to get it wider, and they reference somebody's already applied for it. I already talked to that person or the manufacturer that's getting it for them, or the salesperson. They've already modified their those two trailers to be 6 foot, and what they've done is they've created like a little window bay to create a little bar area between the kitchen and, like, I'll say the open area, the dining area, create a little bit more of an opening, but that's wouldn't be considered part of that 6 foot opening as far as the walkway in the trailer.
And there's relief, Dan, right, in seeking a variance.
Again, they can always go and seek the variance as any property owner within the township can. One issue I think I need to address for the committee's consideration is the idea, which has been raised, of this fractional ownership. I'll speak to condominium form of ownership generally. By state law, there's nothing any municipality can do to stop a condominium conversion. So, for example, consider your sort of typical duplex, where it's 2 units, either upstairs, downstairs, or side by side. If the owner decides to, if it's 2 legally existing separate dwelling spaces, the owner can convert that property to the condominium form of ownership without any approval on the part of the township or the planning board or the zoning board. It isn't changing, because legally, it's not changing the nature of what exists there. It is simply changing how it is owned. And so that's an important tenet of condominium law. Same applies to condominium campgrounds. The conversion to a condominium is not subject to review by the township committee, because it is not changing the nature of what exists. It is simply changing the way in which it is owned.
So technically, any campground in the township could become a condominium should they decide to sell off shares.
There are certain state requirements they would have to go through, and they'd have to get approvals from the state level and make sure that they comply with all those requirements, but they don't have to talk to the township committee at all, or the planning board, or the zoning board, or the township engineer. They just go and do it, and the protections at the state level are less about preventing changes in what exists there, and more about making sure that it's marketed fairly, that everyone who's buying into the condominium form of ownership is being treated, that all pre-existing users of that site are being treated fairly in accordance with state law and regulation. So yes, again, essentially, any campground could convert to a condominium for ownership. It doesn't change what it is, it just changes how it's owned. So you could have, for example, a traditional family campground owned by 2 people or 3 people, or you could convert it to a condominium where it's owned by 306 people. It is
And that's why-
ultimately fundamentally similar.
And that's why we can't carve out a special rule for them.
Because any
And-
campground could become a condo campground.
And actually, that issue was specific because Upper Township unfortunately broke ground in that discussion, because when Oak Ridge tried to, when they did the condo, created that condo campground, the township fought that to try to develop different regulations for condo campgrounds, and the township lost. And essentially, the court said, we can't treat them differently. We have to treat them the same as all of our other campgrounds. So we can't even do what they're asking to do by treating them different.
So just to circle back, if we were to adopt this ordinance tonight with the 6-foot opening, there is relief in that the owners could apply to the zoning board for a variance if they had a unit that had a wider opening.
Absolutely.
Okay. Any additional comment?
Done.
Okay, then I will entertain a motion to adopt.
Make a motion to adopt as revised.
Correct, as currently amended, or as amended last time, yes.
I'll second.
Please call the roll.
Okay. Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Pankos?
Yes.
Ms. Hayes?
Yes.
Motion is carried.
Welcome back, gentlemen.
I'm ready for that.
Okay, Barbara, the next item on our agenda, please.
Item number 21, public hearing and final adoption of ordinance number 17, 2022, authorizing the sale of land for block 479, lots 70 and 72 to the State of New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection Green Acres Program.
Okay, any of my colleagues have any questions? No. This time, we'll open it to the public for anybody that has comments on ordinance number 17 of 2022. Seeing no public comment on ordinance number 17 of 2022, we'll ask for, close the public portion and ask for a motion to enter, adopt.
I move that we adopt ordinance number 17 of 2022.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Ms. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Newman?
Yes.
Mr. Pankos?
Yes.
Mayor Corson?
Yes.
Carried.
Now, see, Kim, that's how you're supposed to do it.
Show off. I'll trade you next time.
He's well rested.
Knights of Columbus, number 9113, Monsignor James Zegers Resurrection Council request to hold a raffle, number 551, at Immaculata Hall on February 12th, 2023.
I make a motion that we approve.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Coggins?
Being a member, I'm going to abstain.
Ms. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Newman?
Yes.
Mr. Pankos?
Yes.
Mayor Corson?
Yes.
Motion is carried with 4 in favor and 1 abstention.
23 is a public works issue. What happened is they had requested the dumpster.
Recycling container.
Correct, the recyclable container, and they had started the process. We had changed midstream the fee structure, and so when they finalized the paperwork, the fee structure had changed. So Mr. Reeves was in communication with this particular entity, and they had asked to get the prior price because they were already in process. So Mr. Reeves, if you want to just kind of...
Well, before we get too far, Dan, Mr. Reeves again.
Mr. Reeves, right?
I have a similar type business, competitive. Should I abstain from this?
I would say yes. To the extent that you think you may have a conflict, I would err on the side of assuming that you do.
This is a campground, I own a campground.
Absolutely.
And we're one of 11,
I
so.
get to go do it.
You're gonna take a nap again?
No, I'm not, I'm sitting right here.
All right, so
That being said, I understand that this person's dilemma, and I would think that we would go ahead and honor the prior price based on the fact that they started this prior to us changing the price.
And I believe I read that the property that they're purchasing we purchased at the original price. We had raised the fees because the cost had gone up, but this was our previous supply that was purchased at the lower cost. Okay.
The question becomes, are we maintaining containers in our inventory? So in other words, is this something that's going to be subject to an inventory replacement? If it is an inventory replacement, we need to look at it at the value of the cost to replace.
We've already done that. We have 12 new units on order, and that was hence based on the cost of those to change the ordinance for the cost of the new number. These are 2 old stock units that were purchased prior to me coming to work for the ordinance.
But will we, when this is delivered to the end user, will we be purchasing an additional container to replenish that void in the inventory?
I already placed an order for 12.
So our ongoing inventory will be 12, it won't be 14, because we're saying that we have 2 from prior purchase.
Correct.
Okay.
So can I have a motion to allow that to continue?
I'll make that in the form of a motion.
Second. Would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Ms. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Newman?
Yes.
Mr. Pankos?
Yes.
And Mayor Forson is abstaining.
Okay,
All in favor?
Back to you.
Item number 24, Emergency and Health Safety Repair Program Assistance.
Yes, Paul.
Yeah, we had a resident contact me off of Tyler Road in the Greenfield section of the township. Her well is going bad. So she had inquired about some affordability assistance. So we do have out of our Affordable Housing Trust Fund affordability assistance for this type of an emergency repair. We've done earlier this year, we did an emergency roof repair, and I believe last year we also did a similar type of a roof repair. She has submitted almost, I'll say 95% of the documentation. Triad's looking for one more piece of information, but I'm asking that if we can get a motion to approve this, conditioned upon Triad providing the certification that she does meet the income requirements, which she's on a fixed Social Security income, living alone. She's going to, it's just a matter of making sure I get all of the paperwork in to Triad to certify. But I'd like to be able to get that paperwork rolling so that, or at least have the pre-approval so that as soon as I have the approval, we can get this new well in for this.
I'd like to make that in the form of a motion, pending no documentation.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Ms. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Newman?
Yes.
Mr. Pankos?
Yes.
Mayor Forson?
Yes.
Thank you. And there'll be a confirming resolution at the next meeting, confirming this once all the paperwork's done.
Item number 25, this is an item that was brought back for your request from the last meeting, National Opioid Class Action Settlement.
I can continue that from the last meeting. We had a discussion, and it was recommended that we give the contribution to the MAC. But there was also a request from EMS that we reimburse for the Narcan because we're now required by the state to leave behind some kits. We've done some research. I've confirmed with Dan.
I have reviewed the conditions of the settlement, and the payment for Narcan is a permissible use of the funds.
So EMS is requesting about $745 of the $1,700 to be reimbursed back to the township. So that would still leave about $1,000 to MAC if that's what you wanted.
Well, are we gonna be purchasing Narcan again, or?
So, yeah, so what I asked for was, there was $372.30 for the 6 kits. And then I asked for another set of kits so we can replace those. Going forward, because we're gonna have
expired.
I mean, is this, do we have to give it to Matt? Can we carry it over and use it for Narcan next year?
I don't know the answer to that question.
Yeah, I
It does
don't
have
know.
to be for one of a myriad of permitted uses. So with that said, I can confirm that purchase of naloxone is a permitted use. I would say roughly there were hundreds, and I'm not sure that's an exaggeration, of permitted uses in terms of education, treatment, prevention, a variety of uses are permissible. It didn't really speak to timing in terms of the materials I reviewed. It just spoke to the purpose.
Can we find that out, or is that?
We could continue to research.
Why don't we find that out?
I would ask Barbara, is there any deadline on our claiming, or we have already received the funds?
We have not received the
So we need
funds.
to-
I just received last week instructions on what needs to be done. There's a second step now that we need to follow to receive the funds. So
But
we
we're
have not
approaching
received them
any
yet.
deadline to receive the funds.
I mean,
to claim the
if
funds.
we can plan on spending it all on Narcan or something,
Okay.
I'd much rather do that as well, and let's just see where we're at, make sure we can go ahead and approve the original request now, and then go from there. Is that,
I don't really see a problem with doing it that way, because again, if we're not up against any deadline to claim the funds, we can always allocate where we'd like to put some of the funds now and continue to make those allocations later.
okay.
good.
Are we done with that topic?
Well,
Do we
I
need a
think
motion for that?
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'll make a motion that we do that.
I'm sorry.
Please go on a roll.
I'm sorry, the motion was for $745.
To pay the
To them, and we'll find out what we can do the rest.
second.
Okay, Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Ms. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Newman?
Yes.
Mr. Pankos?
Yes.
Mayor Corson?
Yes.
Motion is carried.
I had an item under my overview that I guess I can put it under unfinished business, but myself and Committeewoman Hayes sit on the planning board and spoke at length about the Airbnb and a recommendation relative to sending that issue to the planning board. So I didn't know if you wanted to speak on it, but I wanted to give you an opportunity to at least bring it up, and I was supposed to bring it up earlier in the meeting.
Sure, we had a number of residents come here expressing some concerns over Airbnbs in their residential neighborhoods and sort of the transient population that that's bringing with it. So Mr. DiMarzo and I, at the last planning board meeting, sort of just preliminarily brought that up with the members of the board as, that we would like them to investigate some, ordinances, some sort of regulation that they would be able to institute through their board, and ask them to research the ability for us to limit that. They seemed very open to the idea of investigating it and seeing what the possibilities are. So I think they were looking for a little bit of guidance from us, just to, ask them to sort of begin that process.
Well, I agree with you, we should probably kick it to the planning board. But if we're gonna ask them to do some ordinance revisions, I think there's some other issues. I have a short list here of a few things we should have them look at if we're gonna look at ordinances. Dark sky lighting, go back to the streetlights. The design standards for impervious surface. I think we need to really look at that hard, the impervious surface coverage in the township. It's just, landscaping standards, street trees or the buffers between houses. Another issue is contractor work hours. Seems to be, if you work on some of the barrier islands, you have to be done at 5:30, 6 o'clock, and you leave. And you come with your landscaping crew and you work your way offshore through Upper Township. And then the accessory structure size seems to be an issue too. Some of the accessory structures are larger than principal buildings. So if we were going to ask the planning board to look at ordinance revisions, I just my short list.
Do you do that by just a letter of recommendation, Dan, or is that, yeah, just?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's
nothing-
essentially a referral to the planning board.
Correct.
Right.
So,
So if I can get that list from you, Mayor, I'll memorialize that list, and I'll put just a letter of recommendation to the
I
planning.
think Paul can, we usually do it for engineering, but I don't care how it goes, but Paul's got the list, I don't think I did it together, I just had it, as we do to my list.
We may also have to address some affordable housing based on our discussions with the Diocese of Camden and the senior housing close to the senior center. We may have to address our affordable housing plan.
Okay.
To help with that also.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody else has anything else, but I mean, maybe we send this, would ask the planning board to look at this and this list and then see if they have anything else that they think they need to add to it to maybe look at since they're opening up. And if any, but that gives us a little bit of an open window. We just don't want to limit them to this list. I don't think that's.
I agree.
All right. Is there anything else, or is that? That's pretty easy. What's everybody's pleasure on the bills?
I hereby move that all claims submitted for payment at this meeting be approved and then incorporated into the full minutes of this meeting.
Second.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Ms. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Newman?
Yes.
Mr. Pankos?
Yes.
Mayor Corson?
Yes.
Motion's carried.
Okay, at this time, we're going to open it up to the public. Does anybody from the public have anything they'd like to address us tonight? Step on up, man.
You want my name and?
Yes, we need your name and.
Okay, my name is Elaine Holzenbeck, and 29 Sumner Road in Strathmere. And thank you for giving me this time to speak. I have two issues I would like to discuss and ask for your help. One is the Moby mats. 3 years ago, my husband and I came to a meeting, presented a petition with 500 names on it, which I gathered just on our street. Every person who was walking to the beach enthusiastically signed and said it would be the best idea, as walking the incline of the dune was very difficult. You said that you did not have in the budget that year for the mats, but you would put it in the budget for the future. One Moby mat was purchased for our street and placed flat on the beach. No mats were put on the 58-degree incline of soft sand. I measured it. Which is the true need. People still struggle. Those with babies, young children, broken legs and other disabilities, and permanent handicaps. Those mats need to begin at the street. The hill of soft sand is a deterrent to every person who has a health issue and every family with young children. The lack of Moby mats is discriminatory, allowing only physically strong to access our beaches in Strathmere.
Which street were you on, ma'am?
Sumner. A suggestion would be to set aside just 1 year of Strathmere's taxes to pay for every street's Moby mats. We all pay our taxes, and it would be the only fair thing that when a true need arises, that tax money could be utilized for our town, and our town needs Moby mats.
I will address your tax money in your town, ma'am. Strathmere pays approximately $600,000 in taxes to the township of Upper. The lifeguards alone cost over $550,000. Trash removal. The bulk of your tax money goes to the school system, which is not Upper Township.
No, I know that part. I was a teacher in Upper. The second issue is our street lights. Please, please do not dim the street lights. Our streets in Strathmere are very dark. even with the 2 streetlights, one at each end. Loggerhead turtles come to lay eggs, and it was suggested that streetlights may deter them. Streetlights have been in existence in America for 219 years. The first ones were installed in Rhode Island, the ocean state. They certainly know about turtles. Many of our citizens try to protect land turtles. My husband and I always stop the car to help a turtle across the road, as many others do. When I see a squashed turtle, it makes me very sad. We cannot forbid cars on Commonwealth from June to September, so we try to aid the turtles. The loggerhead's greatest threat is not one street lamp on a street. Tens of thousands of loggerheads die each year by accidentally being caught in commercial fishing nets and being hit by recreational boats. We cannot forbid boats from June to September. The eggs are threatened by coastal development and erosion much before lighting. Please do not dim our streetlights. They provide safety and security on our dark streets. Thank you.
The Mophie mats, we did have money budgeted, and we have purchased new Mophie mats since you were here 3 years ago.
We have one Moby mat, and it's on the flat part of the beach.
I believe on a 55-degree slope, there's no way they can be put on that kind of a slope. And
Why not?
How are you going to track? Paul, would you like to address this?
Well, I don't want to, there are several other municipalities that place their access mats up and over the dune crossover, so it is technically feasible. It's a budgetary thing. You know, by code, you know, we have 2 handicap access points, so they have to be have mats. We have typically placed our mats on the beach side of the dunes, you know, out in the beach. You know, I think some of our other neighboring towns don't place them in that location. They place them up and over the dunes, which I think that's what Mrs. Holstenbeck is suggesting.
Well, my question
and we
is-
have our movie mats placed at, I'll say, the beach locations where the lifeguard,
ADA.
we have at the ADA, but also where the lifeguard stations are.
My question is it feasible to put them on a 55-degree slope?
It would be feasible to put them over the top of our dunes, just because I know several of our neighboring municipalities do it, so I can't really, you know, say that you can't.
We sat at a JIF meeting. Mr. Craig and I were there, and several of our mats were deemed insurance risks and cannot be used. So some of them were not put out this year due to the recommendation of JIF and Mel not to use that particular type of mat. So I don't know if we're short on mats or not, but the insurance company recommended not to use that certain type of mat. Mr. Reeves, remember which one Mr. Heiss said that was not be able to use something?
I don't think we have what you were speaking of.
On that particular
Our
mat?
mats are all
On code?
in code.
Okay.
Everything
Can we move that one up?
is out.
Is that?
Okay, so we will look at the Mophie mat situation, we'll see where we are on our budget, but we might be able to come up with some solutions too. I don't know, what's this surface on summer, is it soft sand there or?
It's all soft.
I'm trying to address our public works.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, if maybe we can take a look at it, it might be something we can do.
You gotta remember, at the beginning of the season, it is all hard, they think that the crossover's off, but when the wind blows, the sand blows.
Yes,
Once you put the loading mats down on top of the ground,
they get buried.
then they get buried, so it's going to be a maintenance of.
Can we look at it and maybe come up with some kind of, maybe we can come up with a solution? We will take a look at it between now and the next meeting, man.
I would appreciate that
Yes.
very much, because I see so many people, some people who can't even get to the beach anymore because of the sand dunes.
All right, we'll get it looked at.
Thank you.
Come on down, I know you've tried to
Thank
talk
you.
3 or 4 times today.
I apologize for interrupting earlier.
that's
I'm not
okay.
used to public speaking, let alone in a crowd like this.
That's okay.
My name is David Kritzik. I'm from Barnegat, New Jersey. I'm president of the Manufactured Homeowners Association of New Jersey. And I've been asked to speak here on behalf of the residents of Pine Hill. The difference between a mobile home and a manufactured home is, according to HUD, a manufactured home is a building that was built off-site and delivered. The first manufactured home was built in June 15th, 1976. All the homes prior to that were called mobile homes. So that's why, even though it's Pinewood Hills mobile home, they are manufactured homes. Nobody is gonna back a trailer up to it and pull it out at night. It just ain't happening. The reason I'm here, though, is there's another major difference that I heard during the conversation about the campsites. Everything you heard today was they own or have partial ownership of their land. We don't. We rent our land. We're captive audiences. We're different from apartments. If we don't like it and I'm living in an apartment, I pack up my belongings and I leave. I can't do that with my house. My house was built in 95. I don't think I could have it towed any place in the state of New Jersey because it's that old. I'm at the mercy of my landowner. My rent is capped. Now, we're not asking, according to this article I've been reading, we don't ask for rent control. We ask for rent leveling. Everybody's entitled to a profit. Our landlords, any business, but not in one lump sum. People in Pine Hill, their rent went up $65 in 2 years.
What was the percentage?
Prior to that, it was 500, now it's 565. I'm sorry, I don't do math. I'm sorry, how much? 9.9.
9.9 over 2 years. You know what the CPI was last year?
Yeah. That's 1 year.
Okay.
The problem too is most of us, me included, we're on Social Security. That's it. So even though the CPI went up 8% for Social Security, they gave us a maximum, a major, and made the news. Biggest increase since forever. The cost of living took all that away. The problem now is they're trying to work out an agreement, a rent leveling board. I have one up in Barnegat, many places in New Jersey do. New Jersey is different from most of the states that we all observe home rule. The last I looked, there's 565 communities in New Jersey. Every one of them may or may not have a manufactured home park. And each one of those could have a different rule. In Barnegat, we have two. There's two different ordinances, two different agreements between the owner and the residents, but our township more or less chairs the meeting. It doesn't make any rulings. All it does is give us a platform so that we could talk to the owners. Pine Hill, they can't get in touch with their owners. That's why I'm here. I'm not versed in legal matters. I don't know 90% of my executive administrator handles. He knows all this stuff, I don't. And I apologize for that. I can't give you definite black and white answers. But I could tell you, because I don't own my house, I own my house, I can't move my house. And if my rent keeps going up, I'm in a retirement community, 55 and over. So there's only certain people who could buy in. You have to be over 55 or 65. And they're on Social Security. So if my rent is eating up all of my income, I understand there's a profit to be made, but not why 9.9? If these people can't afford to live there, and again, even right now, the White House is looking in and seeing that manufactured homes are the most effective answer to low-income housing. Aside from living in a Winnebago or something, I don't know, a tent, or homeless. But that's where we're at. And all we're asking for you from the township is help. We don't want you guys to come out with some sort of law or anything, but back in, according to this paperwork, it was put toward the Planning Commission for a study, and monies were granted. Now, I understand, it's only July.
Actually, our budget was just approved in May.
Right.
The monies were not granted until May when it was approved. I don't know what article you're reading from. Our budget was approved, and I think we did budget money for a study. A small amount, yeah.
I kind of thought that came out.
This was from the Press of Atlantic City in January 26th. And like I said, I don't have all the exact dates. I was just kind of called in here. But what we're asking is, help us. Help the manufactured owners over in Pinewood. They're your residents. They pay taxes. We all do. We pay taxes. We spend our money in town. And in this case, the profits that are being made are going out of state. Okay, same way with mine. I can't get, it's ridiculous when I have to deal with our corporate. In Barnegat, though, we ask our mayor and our township, please help us intercede. Maybe make a phone call to the owner, to the park manager. All we want to do is have you answer our call. Set up a meeting with us. And this is all Pine Hill is asking. What I'm offering is our organization, the New Jersey, and we just handle New Jersey. Manufactured homes, if you're a member of if you live, that's the only requirement we have. You live in New Jersey and you own a manufactured home. If you're living in a brick and mortar, sorry. If you live in an apartment, well, yeah, once in a while we help out. But the thing is, these guys voted you in, expecting and trusting your judgment. And now we're just asking for a little bit of help. Help us, my organization, help these guys, and maybe use some influence so that we could form a rent leveling board, get the owners involved here, the park manager maybe. Yeah, make a profit, but not 9 and 10%. Everybody, you guys too, y'all live in houses. Everybody wants the quiet and peaceful enjoyment of their property, just like me.
Is it fair to say that that entire 10% went to profit? Or could some of that 10% have gone to additional expenses? For example, when they came in and mortgaged that property.
That's her.
So I kind of had a little bit of question about calling the 10% a profit.
Right.
because I don't know that we really know what the profit margins of that organization is, or, you know, what type of payment structure they have to finance that community.
I mean, it was a family-owned business, they built it themselves. They probably had zero debt load. When somebody else buys it, there's the debt load now. Whether they overpaid for it, it went for fair market value, what the going rate was. Whether it was overpriced or whatever, I don't know. But when there's a willing buyer and there's a willing seller, that establishes fair market value.
Right. I agree with you, sir.
So, if there's debt load, there's insurance, and as whether you live in a manufactured home, everybody's expenses go up. The business owner's expenses went up too. I own a business. It doesn't matter if you live in a manufactured home, an apartment, a brick and mortar home. Everybody's going to the same grocery stores.
Right.
Everybody gets gas at the same gas stations. Everybody's expenses go up.
Right. What I'm saying is, and I live in Pinewood Estates. This was almost similar to exactly what you said. It was this little small mom and pop place. We have 325 people. RHP bought it. RHP owns 365 different communities throughout the United States. It's a $1 billion organization.
Yes, probably publicly traded. Answer to stockholders.
Yep, it is. And all we ask in the rent leveling board on the rent increase is if you put all this money or any of your 10%, just show us. Show us what you did. Did you improve and we pay taxes, we pay for relief upkeeps, we do everything everybody else does. But if you come along and say, here's a 10% increase, okay, how much have you invested into the park? I don't have pure water, but you're gonna take 10% from me? I don't have street lighting, but here's 10%? I agree with you, everybody's bills, but that profit, all we're asking is,
we could be, I don't see a problem where we couldn't facilitate a meeting.
okay, so what I would like to do is, let me offer a contact to my executive and possibly the people here in Pine Hill. We'll get all the information we could possibly give and just have you help us contact.
Gary, I think we can set it up.
Yes, yes.
Our administrator, we can get something set up.
And then I'll just ask the people who contacted me to get in touch with you, with my executive.
And then we just recently have a new solicitor, so if we could, our solicitor since the last time people from Pine Hill have been in.
So just, if I can just, because we're going on 12 minutes here, but just to encapsulate, you're asking for rent control, correct?
No, rent leveling, sir.
Rent leveling.
Rent leveling.
Semantically, but that's what you want, right?
The other townships.
Ma'am, if you want to come up, you got 5 minutes.
Not every municipality in the state of New Jersey has rent control.
No, you're absolutely right. And like I said, rent control means that, like New York, an apartment could be rent controlled, it's going to be that price forever. All we're saying is, if you want to make a profit, fine. You're entitled to that profit. But don't take the 10% that you're going to spread over 20 years and make me pay for it.
I understand what you're asking, and again, it might infringe on free commerce and some of the other issues that the township is embroiled in at this point with Anderson Windows and some of the other commercial entities. But I will facilitate a conversation, and I will get as much legal ease as I possibly can, and then I will look at it.
Thank you.
All right, so yeah, if you can leave your card here with.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you,
Yes.
Talman.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Joe Falls, 3 Bay Air Road. I'm here for the same issue. I just want to say thank you again for addressing it and moving forward with it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Falls.
All right, is there any more public comment? Yeah, this is fucking funny.
Hi, my name is Barbara Hester. I'm a resident of Pine Hill,
for 16 years. And when I moved there, the rent was $225 a month. Social Security, we're all seniors. Now our rent is up to $565 a month. And we understand in January, it's going to $590, okay? As far as the park is concerned, I don't see where they invested anything to make things nicer, or even to accommodate us. Our trash is overflowing all the time. And, you know, you go to the office and forget it. And a neighbor of ours was here 2 years ago asking about rent control. And we were informed that it would be, see if you had the budget
Well, it wasn't
to look into it.
It wasn't 2 years ago. It was less than a year ago. Or maybe.
It was in, I believe, 2019 in November.
No,
And the
2019
feasibility was going to be checked in February.
2019 in November, we were doing Zoom meetings.
Yeah, okay. Might have been before that. But we were told that it would be checked into.
It was
for,
less than it was
for
less-
rent control.
It was less than a year ago.
Yeah.
Because we talked about it during our budget season all through January. It was less than a year ago, ma'am.
But was it for rent control?
That's what the study was.
That was the study. We have to do a study. We just can't wave wands and make rent control.
Yeah, because I understand Lower Township and Middle Township has rent control for seniors.
Lower Township and Middle Township have a whole bunch of stuff we don't want in Upper.
Okay.
It's.
But
I don't-
you're still checking into this for us?
Yes, we're set up, we're getting the meeting set up.
Okay, thank you.
Is there anyone else from the public? Hearing no public comments, we'll move for a motion to entertain for closed session.
I hereby move that a resolution be incorporated into the minutes authorizing the Township Committee to enter into an executive session for the following matters pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Act. The matters are personnel, contract negotiation for the following: appraisal services, Cape Physicians Employee Physicals, Labor Council, and potential litigation for COA housing. I also include in my motion the estimated time and the circumstances under which the discussion conducted in closed session can be disclosed to the public as follows. It is anticipated that the matters discussed in closed session may be disclosed to the public upon the determination of the Township Committee that the public interest will no longer be served by such confidentiality. With respect to employment and personnel matters, such discussions will be made public if and when formal action is taken or when the individuals involved consent that it can be made public. With respect to contract negotiations, such matters will be made public when negotiations have ceased and there is no longer a reason for confidentiality.
Second the motion.
Let's take,
Okay, Mr. Coggins?
Call roll.
Yes.
Ms. Hayes?
Yes.
take it out in the hall, please, Lee.
Thank you.
Yep.
Mr. Newman?
Yes.
Mr. Pancoast?
Yes.
Mayor Corsi?
Yes.
They do take fire, they just gotta get this going.
Does anybody gotta go? Quickly. Quickly.
Don't mind.
Down you go.